Chapter 707. Yun Jian was not surprised to see that Lan Su had woken up. She picked up a cup of tea that she had prepared earlier and handed it to Lan Su. She then said, "Don't be anxious. Have some tea first. Adam is fine." Lan Su and Adam had come back together. Needless to say, something must have happened while they were walking together. Yun Jian was already a little suspicious. However, she still helped Lan Su up slowly. She let Lan Su lean against the headboard and let her drink some water first. "Is he really all right?" Lan Su heard Yun Jian's words. She obediently swallowed the water in the cup before asking in a serious tone. Naturally, she was referring to Adam. "I just operated on him. He should wake up in a while." Yun Jian glanced at Lan Su. Lan Su and Adam had just met yesterday. Moreover, the two of them had been at loggerheads since the beginning. In the end, it had only been a short while, and Lan Su had already started to care about Adam? Lan Su's pale lips regained some color. She nodded and then explained to Yun Jian. "It's the people from the Murong clan of the Yulong continent. They're also here." Lan Su's beautiful face gradually paled when she mentioned the Murong clan. Murong clan? Yun Jian could not help but frown slightly. It was the first time she had heard this name. Lan Su nodded at Yun Jian, and then began to explain. The Murong clan was one of the great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. However, thousands of years ago, when the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe was still alive, the Murong clan was not even a millionth of the sorcerer tribe. It could be said that the Murong clan thousands of years ago was just a small aristocratic family. Its status was so weak that it could be ignored. However, after the sorcerer god's fall, the Murong clan gradually rose to prominence. Today, the Murong clan had already become one of the four great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. Its status was even close to surpassing the current number one aristocratic family of the Yulong continent. The shaman tribe, which was gradually declining, became the Murong clan's toy. As for today, Adam was dissatisfied with the draw he had with Lan Su yesterday, which was why he went to challenge Lan Su to a duel. But he did not expect that he would run into the people from the Murong clan. That was why today's incident happened. "With your strength, you should be able to defeat the Murong family, right?" When Yun Jian heard this, she could not help but ask Lan Su. Lan Su suddenly paused. After a few seconds she said calmly, "On Earth, our strength is greatly limited. That's why we usually don't use the abilities of the Yulong continent here. Otherwise, we'll have to pay a huge price." Lan Su then added, "The members of the Murong family are no match for me." Then, Yun Jian turned to look at Lan Su with a smile on her face. Lan Su, who was almost embarrassed by Yun Jian's stare, finally got to the point. "That's why the people from the Murong clan brought guns. I couldn't use the abilities of the Yulong continent easily, so I only brought darts. However, I didn't expect that he would block those bullets and bayonets in order to save me." Lan Su tossed aside the skills she had learned in the Yulong continent. She was not weak, and darts were her forte. However, there were many people from the Murong clan at that time. Although Adam was powerful, he was outnumbered. Chapter 708. What are the consequences of using your powers on Earth? Yun Jian asked as she took the empty cup from Lan Su's hand and placed it on the bedside table. She gently laid Lan Su back under the blanket. "I won't be able to cultivate for 100 years. Lan Su watched as Yun Jian covered herself with the blanket. Her thin lips moved slightly, and a trace of seriousness appeared on her cold face. Even Yun Jian couldn't help but move her lips when she heard Lan Su's words. 100 years was a person's lifetime. Most people didn't even live to be 100 years old. Old people in their 80s or 90s were already considered to have lived a long life. Using Yulong mainland's powers on Earth was equivalent to not being able to take a single step forward for 100 years, no matter how hard one cultivated. This was a huge price to pay. It was no wonder the younger generation of the Murong family that Lan Su mentioned, including the people from Yulong mainland who came to Earth, would definitely not use Yulong mainland's powers. After all, stopping one's cultivation for 100 years was crueler than taking a cultivator's life. Yun Jian hesitated for a moment, then paused to ask, At the critical moment, Lan Su had already made her move. This meant that Lan Su's cultivation wouldn't be able to progress for the next 100 years. I'm fine. Lan Su revealed a sweet smile. Her usual cold face coupled with her current smile made Yun Jian's heart skip a beat. Have a good rest. I'll go downstairs and take a look, Yun Jian said as she tucked Lan Su under the blanket, then walked downstairs. However, just as she walked out of her bedroom, she saw Ce standing at the top of the stairs. His tall and slender figure was very eye-catching. Ce's black hair moved. He turned slightly towards Yun Jian, then walked towards Yun Jian. How is it? Ce looked at Yun Jian. He raised his eyebrows and continued to ask. Yun Jian then told Ce everything that Lan Su had told her. He stood by the wall near the staircase, so that the people downstairs wouldn't see him. When Ce heard this, he frowned slightly. After raising his eyebrows, Ce said to Yun Jian, "You have to be careful in the future." What do you mean? Yun Jian quickly guessed Ce's thoughts and raised her eyes slightly. Yes. Ce nodded. Then, without giving Yun Jian time to think, he held Yun Jian's little hand and went downstairs. Ce's meaning was simple. Since the Morong family from the Yulong continent had come to Earth, and the younger generation of the Morong family had died at the hands of Lan Su, the Morong family would definitely not let this matter rest. With Gu Yunjian's help, Qin Yuru did not have many suspicions. In the next few days, Yun Jian did not go to the military training camp. Chu Ning and the others had already gone to the military academy in Min City. Adam was originally living in the villa. For a short period of time, Lan Su was also living here. Qin Yuru was kind and took care of them every day with good food and drinks. The days passed by quickly. Yun Jian also went back and forth between her home, school, New Cruise, and Falcon Hall. Qin Yuru and Gu Yunjian's wedding invitations were sent out. 2 weeks later, Adam, who had long regained consciousness, recovered a lot. These few days, Mo's son and Lan Su fought to take care of Adam. Adam felt that he was 100 times more energetic. This week, Yun Jian also received the verdict of Duan Li's father, Duan Shi, for abusing his child. Prison term, 2 years. This verdict was because Duan Shi had been detained by the police for abusing his child and refused to repent despite repeated warnings. Chapter 709. On this Saturday morning, Yun Jian led Zhang Xiaofeng and Yunyi home after their morning exercise and went home with Yunyi. Ce had already returned to an Hun group, with only Mo's son tagging along. As for Adam, Lan Su was taking care of him at home, due to his serious injury. Perhaps it was because Adam had risked his life to save him, but Lan Su was much nicer to him now. Ce had a feeling that Yun Jian was involved in the assassination attempt previously, as well as Adam and Lan Su's encounter this time. So Ce had returned to an Hun group to investigate the matter thoroughly. Yun Jian took a hot bath when she got home and changed into a clean set of clothes before dragging a small suitcase out of the house. Qin Yuru was no longer a cleaner in New Cruise, since it was Yun Jian's company after all. If Qin Yuru was still working in her daughter's company as a cleaner, she would feel bad for Yun Jian's reputation. After all, Xiao Jian's status was not what it used to be. As her mother, she could not embarrass her daughter no matter what. Moreover, Gu Junjian supported Qin Yuru not going to work, so Qin Yuru cooked at home. Xiao Jian walked slowly. You have to be worried when you're outside. Don't get tricked. Don't listen to strangers. Qin Yuru ran out and shouted behind Yun Jian when she saw her dragging her suitcase out of the house. Mom, I know. I know, Mom. Moreover, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't worry. Yun Jian turned to her side, her petite frame looking even more alluring. Yun Jian then flashed a smile at Qin Yuru and strode ahead. She lied to Qin Yuru again, saying that she would not be able to make it back tonight, because New Cruise wanted her to attend a business meeting. In fact, she was going to attend a gang gathering in Jia Province. However, as the top gang in Jia Province, Leopard Pack did invite a representative from New Cruise. Since Su Zetian was too injured to participate, Yun Jian had no choice but to represent Falcon Hall. Zhang Jifan would be going with him, but Zhang Jifan would be representing New Cruise. Qingyu had been there when she attended the National Gang Tea Party. But Qingyu was still in her hometown now. It was only natural for her to get along well with her family, since they could reconcile. When Yun Jian arrived at New Cruz's store, she could see Zhang Jifan waving at her from afar. "Sister Jian." Zhang Jifan greeted respectfully when he saw Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded and then asked, "Is everything ready?" "Yes, Sister Jian, we can leave anytime," Zhang Jifan told Yun Jian, as he pointed at a mini tour bus behind him. They were all waiting for Yun Jian's order. "Let's go," Yun Jian said and dragged her suitcase forward. There were only 2 people with Yun Jian on this trip, Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. Su Zetian could not go due to his injury. Leopard Pack was the top gang in Zhe Province, and was based in Hang City, the provincial capital of Zhe Province. It was not far from Longmen City, only a 2-hour drive at most. Yun Jian was going to Hang City today, and would only stay for a night, before returning the next day. She had brought her suitcase with her, because she had brought her firearms. When Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan boarded the tour bus, Duan Lei, who sat in front, turned to look at them. "Sister Jian, I'm driving?" Yun Jian nodded softly. Chapter 710. Duan Lei drove steadily. By the time he reached Hang City, it was already past 9 in the morning. "Sister Jian, let's drop off our luggage at Xian Garden Hotel first." Duan Lei's eyes were glued to the front as he drove, but his voice was directed at Yun Jian, who was behind him. Yun Jian replied with a nod as she looked out the window. Xian Garden Hotel was a 5-star hotel that Leopard's gang had arranged for all the major gangs in Zhe Province who were attending the gathering, as well as businessmen, politicians, and internationally renowned figures from afar. The gathering this time was at 8 in the evening. It would be late by the time it ended, so Leopard's gang had prepared a suite for everyone who came from afar. They could check in as long as they reported their identities to the receptionist at the front desk. This was how Leopard's gang's boss treated the guests from afar. "Sister Jian, let me help you with your luggage." When they reached the bottom of the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, Yun Jian's luggage could not be moved anymore. It had to be lifted, so Duan Lei ran over to help Yun Jian with it. Yun Jian had already retracted the luggage handle swiftly, and was 1 step ahead of Duan Lei to lift the luggage. "It's okay, I'll do it myself," Yun Jian said. As she spoke, Yun Jian carried the luggage to the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel easily. Seeing this, Duan Lei didn't insist and followed closely behind. Just as they reached the entrance, they were greeted by a mother and son pair. The mother who walked in front was dressed to the nines. She looked to be in her 20s or 30s, as she strutted toward the entrance with her son swaying her hips. Behind this young mother and child, there was a large group of bodyguards dressed in black. Coincidentally, the group of people and Yun Jian met one another, one entering and one exiting. Yun Jian did not mind. After she went up the stairs of Xian Garden Hotel, she put down her luggage and pulled the lever again to drag it forward. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian as well. Only one door was open at the entrance of Xian New Garden Hotel. The other doors were closed as usual. Yun Jian was already 1 step ahead, and was about to enter the New Garden Hotel. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan followed behind Yun Jian. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother saw her and frowned slightly. Then she looked at Yun Jian with disgust, as though she was unhappy that Yun Jian had entered the hotel before her, and blocked her way out. Therefore, when Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother opposite her quickened her pace. Yun Jian had already noticed the young mother's actions. She frowned slightly, and acted as if she didn't notice the young mother taking large strides towards her. Disregarding everything else, the young mother was definitely a competitive person. Just as Yun Jian was about to enter the hotel, the young mother pulled her son's right shoulder, and tried to use her right shoulder to knock Yun Jian, as though nothing had happened. Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She suddenly realized what was going on. She was 1 step faster than the young mother. She reached out to pull the lever, and swiftly lifted her luggage to dodge to the side. The bodyguards behind the young mother were dumbfounded. How could this young lady be so agile? Chapter 711. The young mother was trying to teach Yun Jian a lesson when she suddenly bumped into Yun Jian with her child. The girl had seen her just now. How dare she walk through the door before her? How bold of him! Did she know who she was? It was just that the young mother did not expect Yun Jian to react so quickly when she bumped into Yun Jian with her shoulder, dodging the impact instantly. The young mother, on the other hand, could not stop herself. She was still standing in Xinxin Yuan Hotel. The hotel floor was made of glossy tiles, and the cleaners had just mopped the floor not too long ago, so the floor was rather smooth. Therefore, she accidentally slipped, and the young mother pulled her son forward and fell heavily. "Madam! Young master! Watch out!" The bodyguards behind her yelled and rushed forward when they saw the situation, but they could only protect the young mother's son in the end. The young mother, on the other hand, fell hard to the ground beside Yun Jian. The fall made the young mother feel like her nose that was smashed into the ground was going to dent as her head sank. In the next second, excruciating pain spread through her body. Ah! It was only after the young mother fell that the bodyguards behind her reacted and helped her up. By then, the young mother was already spasming with hatred. She pushed all the blame onto Yun Jian. When she was helped up by the bodyguards, the young mother felt like her bones were cracked. She was in so much pain that she could barely stand. In spite of it, the more pain she felt, the more the young mother blamed Yun Jian for all the mistakes. "It's all your fault. Why did you dodge? If you didn't, I wouldn't have fallen. Are you crazy?" The young mother pointed at Yun Jian and yelled as she was supported by the bodyguards. Yun Jian's eyes glinted. She did not expect the young mother to blame her. "Sister Jian." It was obvious that the young mother was being unreasonable. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan, who were behind Yun Jian, saw through the whole story and were about to stand up for Yun Jian. Yun Jian raised her hand to signal them to keep quiet. Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan were men who obeyed Yun Jian's orders. Since Sister Jian forbade them from doing anything, they kept their mouths shut. In this era, the concept of wealth and social status was very strong. Therefore, even if some rich people were unreasonable, they could still distort the truth. Some rich people's greatest pleasure was to show off in front of people who seemed to be of lower status than them. This type of person was someone who had nothing better to do. And clearly, this young mother was such a person. "You were the one who bumped into me first. If I didn't dodge, would I have stood there and let you knock me down?" Yun Jian glanced at the young mother from the corner of her eyes, her icy voice laced with a chilling murderous intent. The young mother couldn't help but shiver. But when she thought of her current identity, she raised her head and shouted back at Yun Jian, "It's your honor to be hit by me." As soon as these words were spoken, most of the people present could not bear to continue listening. Yun Jian frowned slightly. Compared to this young mother in front of him, the people he had met before were not the best. "Ha!" Yun Jian sneered. After Yun Jian cackled, she turned to leave, not wanting to be entangled with the young mother. Chapter 712. Yun Jian planned to bring Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei into the hotel, ignoring the young mother's nonsense. However, the young mother's scream came from behind. Yun Jian curled her lips into a smile. Longwen Group? Longwen Group was one of the top companies in Zhe province. It was well known in the entire province. Unlike New Cruise had just risen to prominence, even though it was already well known throughout the country. On the other hand, Longwen Group had been established since the Republic of China. After a few generations of research and promotion, Longwen Group had become Zhe province's spokesperson. She had heard that Longwen Group was close to Zhe province's top mafia group, Leopard Pack. She did not expect them to have such a relationship. The wife of Longwen Group's CEO and the wife of Leopard Pack's boss were sisters? It was no wonder that Longwen Group and Leopard Pack were two unshakable forces in Zhe province. There were even people who claimed that if Longwen Group or Leopard Pack were to be destroyed one day, it would be more unbelievable than the sky falling. Seeing Yun Jian pause, the young mother thought that Yun Jian was really afraid. She walked over with a cold smile and threatened Yun Jian. "Are you afraid? Apologize to me. Otherwise, I'll teach you a lesson even if you're just a little girl. The young mother rubbed her arm and scoffed coldly. Her name was Kai Wenhui, the wife of Longwen Group's CEO. What was even more terrifying was that her brother-in-law was the boss of the province's top mafia group, Leopard Pack. With such an identity, Kai Wenhui was proud of herself in front of everyone and rarely caused trouble. That's right. You've offended our CEO's wife. If you want to leave, you'll have to ask for our permission first. One of the burly bodyguards strode forward, as if he wanted to show off in front of Kai Wenhui. He turned around and yelled at Yun Jian. Seeing this bodyguard's arrogance, the other bodyguards stood out one after another. It was as if Yun Jian was the one who offended Kai Wenhui first. Oh! Yun Jian's deep eyes narrowed as she scanned the crowd with a chilling gaze. In the next second, just as Yun Jian was about to speak, a loud female voice rang out. Sister, she's my friend. Don't make things difficult for her. Hearing the voice, a sweet-looking young girl wearing a pink glazed dress ran towards them. She ran up to Yun Jian happily, then put her arm around Yun Jian's shoulder and said to Kai Wenhui. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched. In the next second, this girl in a pink glazed dress suddenly appeared and put her hand on her shoulder. Although Yun Jian was able to react in time, she did not distance herself from the girl's approach. When Kai Wenhui suddenly saw this young girl, her face was instantly covered with disgust. Kai Wenhui looked at the young girl who had suddenly appeared. She viciously pointed her finger at the young girl and scolded her in a low voice, without a care for her image. Scram! I'm not your sister. You're just an illegitimate daughter. You don't deserve to call me sister. *tch. Don't let me see you. Kai Wenhui yelled as she left. After seeing this young girl who had suddenly appeared, Kai Wenhui practically grabbed her son and fled with a group of bodyguards. She was not even interested in dealing with Yun Jian. Yun Jian was slightly suspicious. However, she saw this young girl in a pink glazed dress reach out her hand to Yun Jian. Hello, I'm Dai Qingqing. The situation just now was urgent, so I called you my friend. Sorry. Chapter 713. Looking at Dai Qingqing's sincere face, Yun Jian also pursed her lips and smiled. Hello, I'm Yun Jian. Yun Jian reached out and shook Dai Qingqing's hand. Hee. Dai Qingqing retracted her hand and smiled. She had a bright smile on her face and looked like an innocent young girl. Yun Jian naturally understood that if Dai Qingqing hadn't stood up in time and said that she was her friend, the young mother wouldn't have let it go. Therefore, strictly speaking, Dai Qingqing had helped him this time. Dai Qingqing smiled and asked Yun Jian, by the way, how did you offend her just now? The two of them were considered acquaintances after shaking hands. Yun Jian briefly explained what happened just now. Dai Qingqing felt a little indignant for Yun Jian. She has always been like this, self-centered. In fact, I've long disliked her. Dai Qingqing was a little discouraged. But I'm just an illegitimate daughter. If grandfather didn't acknowledge me, I would have been kicked out by them. Dai Qingqing's friendliness made Yun Jian listen to her unconsciously. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had already gone to the front desk to report their identities, and then received the keys to 3 rooms. Because Dai Qingqing also stayed in this hotel, and was already familiar with it, she led Yun Jian and the other 2 upstairs. As she walked, she told Yun Jian about her own matters. Dai Qingqing was indeed Kai Wenhui's younger sister, but they had the same father but different mothers. Dai Qingqing's mother was Kai Wenhui's father's mistress. In this way, Dai Qingqing was indeed a spurned illegitimate daughter. My mother passed away when I was 10 years old after giving birth to me. Later, grandfather insisted on bringing me back, despite the family's objections. Grandfather also notarized 1/3 of the company's inheritance rights to my name. So the Kai family hates me but doesn't dare to touch me. Dai Qingqing confided to Yun Jian. Although Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian just met, her intuition told her that Yun Jian was definitely a friend worth making. Kai Wenhui and Dai Qingqing's father had a total of 3 daughters. One was his eldest daughter, Kai Wenhui, who was now married to the CEO of Longwen Group. One was his second daughter, Kai Wenling, who was now married to the boss of the Leopards gang. Dai Qingqing followed her mother's surname. After all, She was an illegitimate daughter. The chairman of Kai Wenhui and Dai Qingqing's father's company was their grandfather. The reason why Kai Wenhui didn't dare to touch Dai Qingqing was that their grandfather had given Dai Qingqing the right to inherit the company's shares. Their grandfather only had 3 granddaughters, so the company would only be handed over to the 3 of them. Although it was very complicated, Yun Jian still listened to Dai Qingqing. Sometimes fate came in a very subtle way. Clearly, some people had just met each other and could not even be considered friends. But even so, 2 people could act like they had been friends for many years. To Yun Jian, Dai Qingqing was one of them. Perhaps he was the only one. Later, Dai Qingqing simply chatted with Yun Jian in her room. And Yun Jian had nothing to do anyway, so she chatted with Dai Qingqing. At noon, Dai Qingqing volunteered to take Yun Jian and the other 2 to a nearby restaurant for boxed lunches. Chapter 714. Although Dai Qingqing was not favored in the Kai family, her grandfather was the head of the household, and she was the one he doted on the most. The Kai family's company was well known in the entire country Z. Therefore, Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling could not do anything about old Master Kai's doting on Dai Qingqing. Usually, Kai Wenhui could only talk to Dai Qingqing, but she didn't dare to do anything to her. What Kai Wenhui feared the most was that Dai Qingqing would complain to old Master Kai, and Kai Wenhui would be done for then. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, was lacking in everything except money. Old Master Kai doted on her. Therefore, after Dai Qingqing forced Yun Jian, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian to a meal, she suggested going to the skating rink. Yun Jian had nowhere to go in the afternoon, so she agreed to Dai Qingqing's invitation. Since she had nowhere to go and had nothing to do in the hotel room for the whole afternoon, she accepted Dai Qingqing's invitation. Then let's go now, Dai Qingqing said when she saw that Yun Jian, Duan Ling Tian, and Duan Ling Tian were done eating. Sister Jian, we won't be going. Zhang Jifan stood up and told Yun Jian with a smile. Duan Lei shared the same thought as Zhang Jifan. Perhaps the younger generation liked to go to crowded places to play, but for people like Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei who had lived half their lives, their interest in the skating rink might not be as interesting as sitting around and playing cards with a group of people. Okay. Yun Jian nodded. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei left with Yun Jian's order. Seeing that Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had left, Dai Qingqing turned to look at Yun Jian and asked the question that had been bothering her. Yun Jian, aren't they older than you? Why did they call you Sister Jian? Dai Qingqing was the kind of girl who was naive and romantic. She was usually bubbly and could be a little smart when necessary. This was evident when she helped Yun Jian scare away Kai Wenhui when they first met. Because Yun Jian suddenly kept him in suspense. Halfway through her sentence, she curled her lips and said, "Because I'm their boss." Her tone sounded like she was joking. Dai Qingqing was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She immediately replied to Yun Jian with a smile. "You're so young. How could you be their boss?" With that, Dai Qingqing pulled Yun Jian's arm and walked happily to the largest skating rink in Hang City. The largest skating rink in Hang City was very large. It was equivalent to a large sports field. Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian each bought a pair of ice skates from a vendor at the entrance of the skating rink. The pair that Dai Qingqing bought was pink with a little rabbit pattern on it. On the other hand, Yun Jian bought a pair of sky blue shoes that looked like crystal shoes. Under the sunlight or lights, they seemed to glow. Hurry up and try it on. See if it fits. After buying the tickets and entering the skating rink, Dai Qingqing picked up the skates eagerly and pulled Yun Jian to a bench to put them on. Yun Jian smiled as well and bent down to change her shoes on the bench. Dai Qingqing was thrilled because she had found a friend. Although Dai Qingqing looked happy all day long, she was actually very lonely. Due to her status as the illegitimate daughter of the Kai family, she had never received any respect or friendship at home or in school. Chapter 715. After hearing this familiar voice, Dai Qingqing's smile instantly froze. At this time, Dai Qingqing was still bending over to put on her shoes, but when this voice sounded, Her hands that were putting on her shoes instantly froze, and even the smile on her face froze a little. Hee hee. So our illegitimate daughter also comes to the skating rink to skate. TSK. Look, you even brought a friend today? This sarcastic male voice became more and more unpleasant, and Dai Qingqing's face became more and more gloomy. She didn't even dare to look up. It wasn't Dai Qingqing's first time skating. On the contrary, Dai Qingqing's skating skills were excellent. Dai Qingqing's school was an aristocratic school, and it was one of the best in the entire Hang City. The aristocratic school had an amateur skating club, which was jointly opened by some skating enthusiasts. Dai Qingqing didn't have any friends at school, but she had a good relationship with the director of the amateur skating club. However, the director was a boy, and Dai Qingqing wasn't in the same class. The reason why the director was friendly to her was only because Dai Qingqing was excellent at skating. The male voice that was mocking Dai Qingqing just now lost interest when he saw that Dai Qingqing ignored him. After all, this person just wanted to show off in front of his friends, but seeing that Dai Qingqing ignored him, he could only give up. But suddenly seeing that there was a girl sitting next to Dai Qingqing, his playful heart rose again. Since Dai Qingqing ignored him, then he would play with her friend. At this moment, Yun Jian was sitting on the bench of the skating rink, bending over to change her shoes. She naturally heard the male voice that insulted Dai Qingqing, but Dai Qingqing chose to ignore it, so Yun Jian naturally ignored it. Are you Dai Qingqing's friend? Raise your head and let me see. The male voice shifted his target to Yun Jian, and said to Yun Jian in a commanding tone. Dai Qingqing was always alone at school, and she didn't have any friends. Because of her identity as an illegitimate daughter, and because Kai Wenhui liked to use her identity to threaten Dai Qingqing's friends, Dai Qingqing didn't have any friends in the end. Only the director of the skating rink club was not afraid of Kai Wenhui's oppression, and still walked with Dai Qingqing. However, the head of the skating club and Dai Qingqing were not in the same class. Moreover, he was a man and Dai Qingqing was a woman. If they often played together, they would be criticized by others. Therefore, Dai Qingqing was always alone in school. When the boy saw that there was a girl beside Dai Qingqing, he naturally ran over to mock and ridicule her without thinking. This was because this boy was also a member of the skating club, but his strength was second only to Dai Qingqing. Or to put it another way, no matter how hard the boy tried, he couldn't compete with Dai Qingqing. Therefore, he was quite jealous, so in the past, he often brought people to cause trouble for Dai Qingqing. Yun Jian didn't listen to a single word the boy said. She still bent down and slowly took off the pair of white flat shoes on her feet, then put on the pair of ice skates. Not only did Yun Jian's movements not speed up, she even slowed down. You. Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian didn't pay attention to him from beginning to end. The boy was so angry that his whole body trembled. Just when he was about to curse, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. He heard Yun Jian's pleasant voice, but the words weren't directed at the boy. She turned her head to Dai Qingqing and said, "Let's go." With that, Yun Jian stood up with the ice skates on. If a beginner put on ice skates, they were bound to fall down. After Yun Jian put on the ice skates and stood up, the ice skates on Yun Jian's legs were like flat shoes, and it didn't affect her at all. The boy was shocked, not because Yun Jian could wear ice skates and didn't fall down, but because Chapter 716. Yun Jian wasn't short to begin with, but she wasn't particularly tall either. She was about 1.6 meters tall. Yun Jian's height coupled with her delicate and flawless face made her look petite and cute. Her figure and face didn't make her too tall, but neither did she make her look too short. Yun Jian was the moderate type. Because of that, Yun Jian's body proportions and face were a perfect match. She could make people's eyes light up when they first saw her. It was especially so since she had never put on any makeup. Her supple cheeks were delicate and flawless. Yun Jian was changing her shoes with her head down, so the boy only saw Yun Jian's beautiful figure. When Yun Jian stood up, her 4 to 5 centimeters long ice skates enhanced her petite figure even more. The boy was stunned for a moment. Yun Jian glanced sideways at the boy who insulted Dai Qingqing. Her cold eyes made one's hair stand on end just by looking at them. Yunjian had a face that made people unable to look down on her. The boy couldn't help but be attracted to Yunjian. "Hey Yikai, you." The other boys standing beside the boy saw that he was stunned, so they called out his name. The few of them looked at Yunjian carelessly. When they saw Yunjian's face, the few careless boys were instantly stunned. Yunjian was even prettier than before. Her tender skin was like a newborn baby's. No one could ignore her beauty. Cough, cough, cough. The boy named Yikai who spoke first put his fist by his mouth, trying to cover up the awkwardness with coughs. However, his eyes were fixed on Yunjian the whole time. "Yunjian, let's go. Ignore them." Dai Qingqing was quite pretty, but she wasn't as delicate as Yunjian. Therefore, the boys didn't feel like they were bullying a girl, even though they often bullied Dai Qingqing. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, had obviously noticed that the boys' gazes were all on her. After all, these boys had a lot of power in the school. Dai Qingqing didn't want Yunjian to get into trouble because of her. So she put on her ice skates and pulled Yunjian towards the skating rink. Hey, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Dai Qingqing, we're classmates and members of the same club. Why don't we play together? Yikai walked over to block Dai Qingqing and Yunjian. He stared straight at Yunjian, and even his attitude towards Dai Qingqing improved. Yikai and Dai Qingqing were classmates. The most popular club in their school was with the skating club. This was because ice skating could not only exercise the body, but was also an exciting and hot-blooded sport. Therefore, Yikai's group of boys was the same as Dai Qingqing. They were all classmates of the skating club. However, Dai Qingqing was very good at skating. Moreover, Dai Qingqing's appearance didn't suit the boys' tastes. Therefore, Yikai's group often found trouble with Dai Qingqing. However, they were stunned when they saw Yunjian. Now their attitude towards Dai Qingqing improved only because of Yunjian's appearance. Yikai's heart itched. He had never seen such a beautiful girl. He wanted to get to know Yunjian even more. "You're all here. What a coincidence." Right at this moment, another female voice came from the side. A tall and slender young lady with good looks was walking towards them. There were two girls following behind the young girl. They looked like her little followers. Chapter 717. Wow, it's Gao Meian. She's the campus belle of our school. Why is she here? After the girl appeared, two of Yikai's buddies immediately cried out in surprise. What do you know? She must be here for our campus hunky. A guy standing next to Yikai proudly put his arm around Yikai's shoulder and laughed at the two people who were discussing. After saying that, the guy couldn't help but look to the side and glance at Yunjian. The girl just now was the campus belle of their school. Her name was Gao Meihan. Gao Meihan was recognized as the #1 beauty in the school. Not only was she beautiful, but she was also kind and got along well with others. Therefore, a beauty like Gao Meihan was the ideal partner in many boys' hearts. Yunjian, let's go. However, after Dai Qingqing saw Gao Meihan, she walked over and wanted to pull Yunjian to the side even more. Others didn't know, but Dai Qingqing had experienced it firsthand. Gao Meihan, who was rumored to be beautiful and kind, only knew how to pretend in front of boys. Dai Qingqing accidentally bumped into Gao Meihan on her way to school. At that time, Gao Meihan said that she was fine. Dai Qingqing thought that Gao Meihan was a nice person. However, in less than 2 days, there was news that she didn't apologize for bumping into Gao Meihan. Immediately, some boys came to Dai Qingqing to cause trouble, using the excuse of standing up for their goddess. Gao Meihan pretended to be innocent and told the boys not to cause trouble for Dai Qingqing. She said that it was her own accident. This way, the boys could stand up for Gao Meihan even more. Dai Qingqing was messed up badly back then. Therefore, when Dai Qingqing saw Gao Meihan, she felt a wave of hatred in her heart. Yunjian had been watching from the side. She didn't forget that she came to Hang City to attend the gang gathering at night. However, she didn't expect to be friends with Dai Qingqing. As for coming to the ice skating rink, it was purely out of interest. As a special agent in her previous life, Yunjian basically knew everything that could be said. This was because special agents had to mix in all kinds of situations to kill people. Yin Jian might not be particularly good at ice skating, but compared to ordinary people, she was a piece of cake. Yes, Yin Jian didn't want to stay here any longer. When she heard that Dai Qingqing was going to leave, she turned around and left with Yi Kai and the others on her back. Seeing that Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian had left on their own accord, Gao Meihan's somewhat unhappy expression instantly improved a little. Everyone knew that Gao Meihan liked Yi Kai. Yi Kai was the school hunk in their school. He was indeed good-looking. He was tall and lean, which was exactly what girls liked. Therefore, Gao Meihan purposely came here to look for Yi Kai. Gao Meihan knew that Yi Kai would definitely be here. Yi Kai was a member of the school's skating club. Gao Meihan already knew that he loved skating the most. However, she didn't expect to see Yi Kai staring blankly at a girl as soon as she entered the venue. No girl had ever caught Yi Kai's eye, including herself. Therefore, Gao Meihan watched Yun Jian walk over with a hateful gaze. Seeing that Dai Qingqing and Yun Jian were about to leave, Gao Meihan was also relieved. At this moment Yi Kai's voice sounded again. "Wait! Don't go!" Yi Kai once again looked at Yun Jian with infatuation. It was undeniable that he fell in love with Yun Jian at first sight. Yi Kai took a deep breath. He looked at Dai Qingqing and realized that Yun Jian was with Dai Qingqing. Therefore he said to Dai Qingqing, "Dai Qingqing, if I did anything wrong to you before, I apologize to you. I'm now sincerely inviting the two of you to come with us. Please don't reject." Yi Kai had high standards. Even a school belle like Gao Meihan couldn't catch his eye. However, he fell in love with Yun Jian the moment he saw her. Chapter 718. Dai Qingqing's eyelids twitched. What was this? Yi Kai actually apologized to her? One had to know that Yi Kai was the one who always caused trouble for her in school. Dai Qingqing would rather believe that the sky was falling than believe that Yi Kai would apologize to her. But now, Yi Kai really apologized to her? Dai Qingqing was overjoyed, but she still put on airs and ignored Yi Kai and the others. She said to Yun Jian, "Yun Jian, let's not lower ourselves to their level. I'll teach you how to skate, and I'll definitely teach you better than them." Yun Jian softly agreed. In fact, she didn't want to mess with Yi Kai and the others at all. "Qingqing, Senior Yi invited you guys to skate. Don't reject him. It's rare for us to get together. Let's play together." Gao Meihan wanted nothing more than to tear Yun Jian into pieces, but she had no choice but to put on her usual kind face. Gao Meihan seemed to want to appear kinder in front of the boys. She was still like an innocent girl. She tried to run over and hold Yun Jian's hand while saying, "Let's play together. I don't even know your name yet. You're so pretty. Let's be friends." But in reality, Gao Meihan hated Yun Jian to the core. Gao Meihan liked Yi Kai, but Yi Kai didn't like her. Gao Meihan couldn't do anything about it. But today, she suddenly saw Yi Kai staring blankly at an unfamiliar girl. If Gao Meihan wasn't angry and wanted to be friends with Yun Jian, then she must be stupid. But in front of the boys, Gao Meihan always acted like this. The school belle is different. Look at how magnanimous Gao Meihan is. Yeah, she's beautiful and kind-hearted. A few of Yi Kai's buddies immediately began to comment on her. At this moment, Gao Meihan was already walking towards Yun Jian. At the same time, she reached out and wanted to hold her hand like how Dai Qingqing held Yun Jian's hand. Hearing the praises from the people around her, Gao Meihan's heart rose slightly. She even couldn't help but curse in her heart. If the boys thought that she was so kind, then Yi Kai must be touched. After all, she was pretty and had a good figure. Which man in the world could resist her temptation? But just as Gao Meihan was about to hold Yun Jian's hand, Yun Jian's skates moved slightly to the side. She easily dodged Gao Meihan's hand. "Sorry, I don't like strangers touching me with their dirty hands." With the side of her face facing Gao Meihan, Yun Jian's nonchalant tone made the temperature in the room drop by a few degrees. The word stranger and dirty hands made Gao Meihan's heavily made-up face twitch violently. Her face instantly froze. A vicious and disgusted light flashed in Gao Meihan's eyes, but she still pretended to be pure and innocent. She looked as if she had really suffered a great grievance. Yun Jian tugged the corner of her lips slightly. Seeing their school belle being bullied, Yi Kai's buddies righteously stood up for Gao Meihan. Hey, how can you be like this? Gao Meihan really wants to be friends with you. How can you be like this? One of Yi Kai's buddies rushed to speak to Yin Jian. Although Gao Meihan pretended to be aggrieved and crying in front of the boys, she was always listening to the movements around her. Pretending to be pitiful was her specialty. Just when Gao Meihan thought that Yin Jian would embarrassingly apologize to her in front of everyone like a normal girl, she heard Yin Jian's cold voice again. Chapter 719. The skating rink was huge, and there were many people skating here. Yin Jian didn't say it very loudly, but it made everyone's heart tremble. Who would have thought that such a beautiful girl could say something so terrifying? What did she mean by not only can I do that, but I can also kill you? Moreover, Yin Jian's last question, "Do you believe me?" was uttered in a flat tone. It wasn't a question, but a confirmation. Gao Meihan shuddered violently, and Yi Kai and the others were stunned for a while. Even Dai Qingqing looked at Yin Jian in shock, and couldn't help but gasp at the same time. After all, if it was a normal girl, no one would say something like that so casually. Kill. That was something no one dared to think about. Yin Jian, on the other hand, had uttered the word so easily. Ha, a pretty girl, you shouldn't joke like that, right? As if trying to ease the atmosphere, Yi Kai's buddy stood up again. He smiled awkwardly and looked at Yin Jian. Without a doubt, everyone thought that Yin Jian was just joking. Let's go. Yin Jian glanced at them and said to Dai Qingqing. Oh. Dai Qingqing reacted after a while, and then she followed Yin Jian to the side, bypassing Yi Kai and the others, and walked to another corner. Dai Qingqing laughed until they were far away from Yi Kai and the others. Hee Yin Jian, did you see Gao Meihan's face just now? She was twitching. You probably don't know who Gao Meihan is, right? She's the girl who pretended to be pitiful in front of the boys. Back then Dai Qingqing talked to Yin Jian for a while about what Gao Meihan did to her before she stopped. At this moment, Dai Qingqing and Yin Jian were already standing at the ice skating rink in the north. Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and the others were standing on the south side of the skating rink, which was the furthest away from Yin Jian and Dai Qingqing. It was fortunate that the skating rink was huge, so Yi Kai's men could not hear what Yin Jian and Dai Qingqing said, since one was in the north, while the other was in the south. Yin Jian put on her ice skates and moved a little on the ice skating rink. She sat on the rest seat and watched Dai Qingqing skate. Dai Qingqing's skating posture is very gentle and beautiful. Yin Jian squints and appreciates it again. Dai Qingqing was a member of the school's skating club. She was interested in skating and was good at it. Therefore, Yin Jian accompanied Dai Qingqing and stayed here for the whole afternoon. When they left the skating club, it was already 4:30 p.m. Let's go, Yin Jian. I'll take you to a feast. Dai Qingqing said generously. She had already regarded Yin Jian as her true friend. Okay. Yin Jian nodded. The two went back along the road. They first called Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei at Exine Garden Hotel, then went to the place Dai Qingqing pointed to for dinner. I should go back, Yin Jian. Let's meet at the gathering tonight. Dai Qingqing said happily to Yin Jian when she found out that Yin Jian was going to the gathering tonight. Dai Qingqing stayed at Exine Garden Hotel because she didn't want to go back to the Kai family. But tonight was special. As the most favored granddaughter, Dai Qingqing's grandfather would take her to the gathering tonight. This gang gathering was held by the Leopard Gang. However, the Leopard Gang had invited people from all walks of life to participate in such a gathering. They wanted to get closer to each other and strive for better results. However, some large companies or enterprises would bring their children to such gatherings purely to introduce their juniors to the public. If there was someone of the right age, they could even get married. Chapter 720. Therefore, not only were the attendees of tonight's gathering internationally renowned or reputable companies in Jia province, or even the world, these people would even bring their children along. However, under normal circumstances, the people who could bring their children to make friends with a wider social circle were usually the big companies in Ja province. As for the big shots that the leopard gang invited from the international community, there was no need to even think about it. They definitely wouldn't bring them. Even if someone wanted their children to get to know each other and become in-laws, it would depend on the situation. After all, it was a gathering organized by a gang in Ja province. If the big shots from the international scene brought their children to meet someone they fancied, they would either be marrying or marrying someone of lower status. It was not worth it. Of course, no one would voice such thoughts out loud. It was just that such a social phenomenon truly existed. After bidding farewell to Dai Qingqing, Yun Jian returned to Xine Garden Hotel. Since she had nothing to do in the hotel, she brought Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who had been cooped up in their rooms, for the entire afternoon to the hotel lounge to play mahjong. Before Zhang Jifan joined Yun Jian, he was still a small-time thug in Xinjiang town. Back then, Zhang Jifan was either gambling or lending money at a high interest rate. It had been a long time since he played mahjong, since he started following Yun Jian. "I didn't expect you to be so good, Sister Jian," Zhang Jifan exclaimed in exasperation after losing to Yun Jian again. For people were required to play mahjong together. Since there was a mahjong table in Xine Garden Hotel's lounge, mahjong enthusiasts would naturally seek it out. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, the other person at Yun Jian's table was a mahjong enthusiast. After losing 6 to 7 rounds to Yun Jian, the mahjong enthusiast opposite her stood up and left like he was running away. He was a bald old man who was currently rubbing his head and shouting, "I've lost it all, I've lost it all. I'm old, I can't do it anymore. I can't even win a little girl. I'm not coming anymore. I'm not coming anymore." Shaking his head and sighing, the little old man quickly left the place. "Sister Jian, can we stop?" Zhang Jifan, who had just lost a handful of 100 yuan, begged desperately, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Yun Jian glanced at Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She then looked at the clock in the lounge and said, "Again." Zhang Jifan wanted to cry but had no tears. After Yun Jian won a lot of money, Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei had their wallets emptied by Yun Jian. The clock pointed to 7:30 in the evening. "I made quite a bit of money. I'll treat you two to supper after the party." Yun Jian patted her bulging trouser pockets and said generously to Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. At the same time, she grinned slightly, revealing her neat row of white front teeth. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei were speechless. At 7:40 p.m., a large bus stopped at the entrance of Xine Garden Hotel. The bus was there to pick up people who did not drive there. Duan Lei drove a tour bus, so he did not need to take the bus that Leopard's gang had sent. When Duan Lei drove steadily to the building where the party was being held, it was exactly 8 p.m. Leopard's gang's party was not held at Xine Garden Hotel. Duan Lei opened the door for Yun Jian personally, and Yun Jian hopped out of the car. Yun Jian then walked in front while Duan Lei and Zhang Jifan guarded her, as they walked to the high-end building where the party was being held. The building was used for the party. Chapter 721. At this moment in front of this building, where there was no light, it was still pitch black. The side of the building was filled with fountains, and the various neon lights shone on the fountains, instantly adding a strange color to the fountains. Passing through a small forest on this side of the stone path, one could see this tall building standing in front of them from afar. The closer they got to the building's entrance, the clearer Yun Jian and her friends could be seen in the dark. "Sister Jian, it's here. Let's go in." Duan Lei held a piece of paper in his hand that had the address of the gathering written on it. He glanced at the address with the help of the street lamp and looked up at the building's door number as he told Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei forward. Just as they reached the stairs of the building, Yun Jian heard someone calling her name from behind from afar. Hearing the voice, Yun Jian was certain that the person who spoke was not Dai Qingqing. It was a man's voice. Standing on the stairs, Yun Jian tilted her head slightly to look at him. When she saw who was walking over, she frowned slightly. The person who called her was none other than Yi Kai, whom she had met at the skating rink. There was a middle-aged man and woman standing beside Yi Kai's tall frame, looking at their features that resembled Yi Kai's. Yun Jian could guess that they were Yi Kai's parents. Yun Jian, it's really you. Yi Kai exclaimed in delight when he saw Yun Jian. When Yi Kai saw Yun Jian's frown, he suddenly realized something and chuckled. His rather handsome face displeased Yun Jian. Haha, it's because that's what Dai Qingqing called you. I heard it, so I knew you're Yun Jian. Yi Kai explained before looking at Yun Jian like a gentleman and told her. You're Yun Jian. I didn't expect you to come here. Do you want to go in together? Yun Jian narrowed her eyes at Yi Kai's friendly tone. Kai, or who is this girl? A middle-aged woman who was dressed to the nines standing behind Yi Kai glanced at Yun Jian in disdain and asked Yi Kai. She's a girl I met at the skating rink. Yi Kai explained to his mother with a smile. Yi Kai's mother's surname was Yu, and her name was Xiaodan. Yu Xiaodan was an experienced person. She could tell at a glance that her son was interested in Yun Jian. However, after looking at Yun Jian, Yu Xiaodan immediately frowned. Everyone who came to the party tonight was dressed up. Not only Yu Xiaodan, but even Yi Kai had changed into a suit, which made him look even cooler. On the other hand, Yun Jian was dressed in simple and ordinary clothes. Although Yun Jian had a good foundation, no matter what she wore, she would not lose her beauty. But to an upper-class family like Yu Xiaodan, what use was beauty? Money and power were the most important things. Therefore, there was no need to think about it. Yu Xiaodan had already looked down on Yun Jian. Kai, our family is considered a respectable one. It's better if you don't interact with shady people. Yu Xiaodan looked at Yun Jian, then looked at Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei standing behind her, and said to Yi Kai with disdain. Mom. Yi Kai wanted to say something, but a girl that Yun Jian was familiar with spoke up. Chapter 722. The moment Gao Meihan saw Yun Jian, she wanted to kill her. Why? Why was this woman here? Gao Meihan also came with her parents today. Her family background was similar to Yi Kai's. They were both the young master and the young mistress of a prestigious family. Most importantly, the parents of the two families were business partners. They were the school belle and the school hunk. They were a perfect match. Gao Meihan pestered her parents to come today, because Yi Kai would definitely be there. Gao Meihan and Yi Kai's families were at the bottom of the food chain in today's gathering. They weren't eye-catching at all. As for Yi Kai's brothers, they didn't even have the right to attend tonight's gathering. Gao Meihan wanted to take advantage of today, to call Yi Kai out in the middle of the gathering. She wanted to avoid both parents and confess to Yi Kai. When she saw Yi Kai from afar, Gao Meihan was extremely excited. But who did she see? She saw Yun Jian. It was actually the woman that Yi Kai was infatuated with. Why was she here? However, in order to maintain her image, especially in front of Yi Kai's family, Gao Meihan could only dig her fingernails into her flesh. She turned to look at Yun Jian and showed a friendly face. Ah, you're here too? What a coincidence. We must be fated to meet. Gao Meihan stuck out her tongue as she spoke, acting like a young girl. Meihan, you're here. Auntie has been waiting for you at home for a few days. You must come and stay over next weekend. Yu Xiaodan could tell that her son, Yi Kai, was interested in Yun Jian. She purposely walked up to Yun Jian and gently held Gao Meihan's hand. Yu Xiaodan thought that since her son liked Yun Jian would definitely be interested in her son. After all, which girl wouldn't want to marry into a prestigious family like theirs? The type of daughter-in-law that Yu Xiaodan admired the most was someone like Gao Meihan. Therefore, Yu Xiaodan did this in front of Yun Jian, so that the latter would know her place and not come here to seduce her son. Sister Jian, it's 8:05 p.m. We should go up, Zhang Jifan told Yun Jian after checking his watch. Yun Jian saw Yu Xiaodan and Gao Meihan's reaction, but she merely snorted inwardly and turned to go up the stairs. Hey Yun Jian, wait for me. Yi Kai ran after her when he saw Yun Jian going in. Yu Xiaodan was fuming as she dragged Gao Meihan and led the others up as well. Yu Xiaodan couldn't help but curse in her heart. It must be that little b asterisk tch who stole her son's soul. She's still pretending to be virtuous. Playing hard to get. Humph. She was not going to let the b asterisk tch get away with it. Yun Jian ignored Yi Kai who chased after her, as she led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei to the entrance of the gathering. There was someone sitting at the entrance to register. One could only enter the venue after their identity was reported. Pulling Gao Meihan along, Yu Xiaodan ran up with a group of people behind her. She practically sprinted to Yun Jian and hollered at the person who was registering at the entrance. Yi group. Then, Yu Xiaodan pointed at Gao Meihan and told the person, "This is Gao Group's young lady. You can go in now," the person at the entrance said after registering. Yu Xiaodan turned to look at Yun Jian with her head held high, her gaze seemingly saying, "What identity are you using to enter this place?" Yun Jian ignored Yu Xiaodan and went to the registration counter. With a press of her red lips, she uttered, "Falcon Hall." Chapter 723. Yu Xiaodan had been looking at Yun Jian with her head held high, but she froze the moment Yun Jian revealed her identity. Falcon Hall. Even the registrar sitting at the entrance was about to write down the next entrance identity when she heard Yun Jian's name. She could not help but freeze on the spot with her pen in her hand. Yi Kai's hand that was trying to get closer to Yun Jian froze in midair. Gao Meihan, Yi Kai, and Gao Meihan's parents were all stunned. No one would pay attention to Yun Jian, because Yun Jian's attire alone was enough to make her seem like a nobody. However, Falcon Hall was a gang that had risen recently. Back then, Leopard Pack was the top gang in Ja Province, while Flying Passage was second. In other words, Flying Passage's influence was second only to Leopard Pack. It could be said that Flying Passage was the only gang that could possibly replace Leopard Pack as the top gang in Ja Province. Even Leopard Pack, the top gang in Ja Province, could not annihilate Flying Passage. However, news had spread a few months ago that Flying Passage had been annihilated by Falcon Hall. All of Flying Passage's territory had now become Falcon Hall's. The news was already shocking enough, but compared to that, the scariest part about Falcon Hall was, back when Flying Passage was annihilated, it was not Falcon Hall who led their brothers to fight for it. Instead, it was Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa, who went to Flying Passage alone and killed their boss right in front of the higher-ups and everyone else. She did not need anyone to annihilate the second-best gang in Ja Province on her own. Just how powerful was that? However, no one present would associate Yun Jian with the legendary Falcon Hall's current boss, Rakshasa. After all, the legendary Rakshasa was too powerful, while the Yun Jian before them looked thin and weak. Although Yun Jian was now much more voluptuous than when she had just been reborn, she still looked skinny with her clothes wrapped around her body. Falcon Hall. Yun Jian, you're from Falcon Hall? Yi Kai's first reaction was shock. After all, most of the people present knew what Falcon Hall represented. Falcon Hall was able to wipe out Flying Passage in the shortest time possible, when even Leopard Pack could not. This meant that Falcon Hall would very likely replace Leopard Pack as the #1 gang in Ja Province in the future. Although Yi Kai and Gao Meihan's families were prominent in Hang City, in a gathering like this, their companies were only at the bottom of the food chain. Not to mention Falcon Hall and Leopard Pack. They were not even 1/10 of Falcon Hall and Leopard Pack. Therefore, Yu Xiaodan's face turned pale the moment she heard that Yun Jian was from Falcon Hall. She had just verbally insulted Yun Jian because she saw Yun Jian's shabby clothes. At first, Yu Xiaodan even thought that Yun Jian was the kind of woman who would shamelessly come to her son and beg him to bring her into the venue. That was why Yu Xiaodan had boasted about her and Gao Meihan's family background in front of Yun Jian. However, who would have thought that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's member? How was that possible? She was still so young. How could she represent Falcon Hall in this gathering? Yun Jian ignored Yi Kai. At the same time, Zhang Jifan had walked to the registration counter. He spoke to the people registering. New crews. Chapter 724. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall earlier, it meant that she was a member of Falcon Hall. Yi Kai and Gao Meihan's families had mixed feelings. After all, everyone knew of Falcon Hall's name. However, who would have thought that Zhang Jifan, who had been following behind Yun Jian, would mention the name New Cruise so bluntly? If Falcon Hall was a rising force that should not be provoked, then New Cruise was the representative of the new generation of large corporations. Now that New Cruise was well known throughout the country, New Cruise was undoubtedly a trendsetter in Country Z. New Cruise had also started planning to expand nationwide in the form of branches. The plan was still in progress, but Yun Jian had already arranged for Zhang Jifan to carry out the plan. At the same time, New Cruise had already begun to join the company nationwide and received a great response. It could be said that New Cruise was the rising star of the future. As for Yi Kai's family's Yi Group and Gao Meihan's Gao Group, there was no need to even think about it. They were incomparable to New Cruise. When Yun Jian mentioned Falcon Hall, the person at the registration counter was dumbfounded. In the end, Zhang Jifan, who looked like Yun Jian's follower, came forward and said New Cruise. The person at the registration counter was completely dumbfounded. The black pen in her hand fell to the ground with a clatter. The person at the registration counter quickly bent down to pick up the pen. Then she wrote New Cruise on the registration book in a panic. She then said to Yun Jian in a panic, "Apologies, I'm sorry. My apologies for my rudeness earlier. You may enter now." The lady at the registration counter was used to meeting all sorts of big shots. Naturally, she would not be intimidated by such a small matter. If Yun Jian did not look so young and her identity, including that of the middle-aged man behind her, were not so shocking, the lady at the registration counter would not be stunned at all. Yi Kai turned sideways to say something to Yun Jian, who was 2 meters away from him, just as the lady at the registration counter finished her words. "Sister Jian, let's go in." Zhang Jifan spoke first to Yun Jian. "Yes." Yun Jian nodded. Then, Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei through the entrance. The corners of Yi Kai's mouth twitched. He looked at Yun Jian's petite but alluring back, and his heart began to stir. Seeing this, Gao Meihan once again dug her fingernails into her flesh, but her face was trembling as she pulled out a very unnatural smile. "Calm down." Yu Xiaodan walked over and knocked on Yi Kai's head, then muttered to herself, "Stop pretending. A perfectly fine girl running off to mingle in the underworld. She's definitely not a good person. Kai, or you better stay away from her. Don't be bewitched." Saying that, Yu Xiaodan grabbed Gao Meihan's hand and patted it gently. Then, she smiled at Gao Meihan and praised her in front of her family. "Our Meihan is the best. Not only is she beautiful, but she's also kind-hearted and generous." Heh. Yu Xiaodan even comforted herself as she spoke. In Yu Xiaodan's opinion, so what if Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's member? So what if Zhang Jifan was Yun Jian's man, and was related to New Cruise? She was not Falcon Hall's boss, the woman called Slaying Luo. She was not the director of New Cruise. What was there to be smug about? Some people are just too self-righteous and think too highly of themselves. Yu Xiaodan didn't forget to add such a sentence. Chapter 725. Yu Xiaodan said that because she was indignant that Yun Jian had been more arrogant than her just now. Therefore, if Yu Xiaodan did not mock Yun Jian, she would feel even worse holding it in. This was only because Yu Xiaodan did not know Yun Jian's identity. If Yu Xiaodan knew Yun Jian's true identity, she would not dare to say such things even if she had the guts to do so. All right, let's go in." After listening to Yu Xiaodan's words, even Yu Xiaodan's own husband couldn't listen to it anymore. He hurriedly urged twice. Fine. Yu Xiaodan replied impatiently. Then, she turned to look at Gao Meihan with a benevolent face. The more Yu Xiaodan looked at Gao Meihan, the more she liked her. As they spoke, they followed Yun Jian through the entrance. When Yun Jian led Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei into the venue, they were greeted by various dining tables that were more than 10 meters long. The lights in front of them lit up the place, like it was daytime, while all sorts of desserts were laid out on the tables. There were many cutlery on the tables covered with white tablecloths, But it was obvious that the desserts and cutlery were expensive just by looking at them. There were wine bottles piled up on some of the tables. From a distance, it was obvious that the wine was expensive, and they were all premium items from the olden days. It was obvious that one could enjoy any of the delicacies here for free once they entered the venue. This was a gathering of the upper class. Yun Jian went to a rectangular table and took a small Swiss roll from it, popping it into her mouth to chew and swallow. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei were hungry as well, standing in an inconspicuous corner with Yun Jian with the desserts in their hands. Sister Jian, this dessert is delicious. We should change the food in our sect. I'm sick of the communal meals. Duan Lei, who was usually calm, could not help teasing. I've eaten the communal meals in your sect once too. TSK. That taste isn't even 1/100th of the dessert in my hand. Zhang Jifan teased with a chuckle. I'll send the chef here back to Longmen City another day then. Yun Jian teased with a smile. The venue was already filled with people, and there were still people streaming in from outside. In comparison, Yun Jian, Zhang Jifan, and Duan Lei did not have much of a presence. Moreover, most of the people there were already chatting with their acquaintances. Yun Jian did not have many acquaintances in Jia province. Be it New Cruz or Falcon Hall, she did not rely on the connections around her to develop them. All in all, there were not many people who knew her. Yun Jian, you're here. It was at this moment that a joyful voice came from the side. Yun Jian looked over. She did not even have to look. The person who could call her name with such a cheerful voice was undoubtedly Dai Qingqing. As expected, Dai Qingqing was holding a man in his 50s or 60s. An old man with graying hair on both sides of his temples was walking over. It was obvious that the old man had graying hair, but he was in high spirits. There was an air of arrogance between his brows that radiated around him, forcing those present to look at him directly in the eye. It was obvious that the old man was Dai Qingqing's grandfather, Kai Wenhao. Dai Qingqing followed her mother's surname and returned to the Kai family later, so she had a different surname from Kai Wenhao. Chapter 726. Dai Qingqing held onto Grandpa Kai's arm. Before they reached Yun Jian, Dai Qingqing said, Yun Jian, I've been looking for you for a long time. I've almost searched the entire place. I finally found you. With that, Dai Qingqing pulled Grandpa Kai to stand in front of Yun Jian. Yun Jian immediately sized up Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai. Grandpa Kai was dressed in formal attire and looked energetic. Although his hair had turned white, a person's aura would not change with his appearance. While Yun Jian was sizing up Grandpa Kai was sizing up Yun Jian as well. It was then that Yun Jian saw that Dai Qingqing had changed out of her school uniform and was now wearing a pink lace gown. The tube-top form-fitting evening gown accentuated Dai Qingqing's graceful figure to begin with. What do you think? Yun Jian, do I look good in this? When Dai Qingqing saw Yun Jian looking at her, she couldn't help but smile. She stood on the spot and twirled around while tugging at the hem of her dress. With that, she inched closer to Yun Jian and spoke intimately. It's beautiful. Yun Jian gave the best comment she could think of. Dai Qingqing smiled and jogged over to Yun Jian. She held Yun Jian's hand and introduced her to Grandpa Kai. Grandpa, this is a friend I just met. Her name is Yun Jian. With that, Dai Qingqing didn't forget to introduce her grandpa to Yun Jian. Yun Jian, this is my grandpa. I've mentioned it to you before. Grandpa is the person closest to me in this world. After Dai Qingqing's mother passed away, Grandpa Kai brought Dai Qingqing back to the Kai family. Although the Kai family didn't welcome Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai had always treated her like his own daughter. Even when it came to Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling, Grandpa Kai favored Dai Qingqing more. Hello. Yun Jian turned to look at Grandpa Kai and nodded slightly to express her goodwill. Hello, little friend. Grandpa Kai looked at Yun Jian kindly and nodded. Although Grandpa Kai looked kind and amiable, he was the CEO of a well-known company in Z country. Although Grandpa Kai was old, he still had a tight grip on the company under his name. This was also the reason why Grandpa Kai treated Dai Qingqing so well. Grandpa Kai's descendants, including Dai Qingqing's biological father, had no choice but to listen to Grandpa Kai. He had power and influence, and could get whatever he wanted. Others could only follow his orders. Ha ha ha. It's truly an honor for Mr. Ouyang to grace us with your presence. At this moment, a group of people walked into the backyard of the party. Among them, a short man with a ferocious face and a long and terrifying scar on his neck led a group of people out. This short man was walking together with a tall and thin man, but one of his eyes was covered by a single eye patch. He looked like a ferocious pirate. The short man whispered to the tall and skinny man with an eye patch. His words were full of flattery. Yin Jian saw it from afar. This short man with a terrifying scar on his neck was the boss of the leopard gang, Han Biao. People called him Brother Biao. As for the tall and thin man with the single eye patch who walked in front of Han Biao and was flattered by Han Biao, Yin Jian did not know him. However, judging from Han Biao's flattery, it was enough to tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. After all, Han Biao was the boss of the leopard gang, the biggest gang in Zhe province. Chapter 727. Han Biao became the center of attention as soon as he showed up. Yun Jian followed the line of sight and accidentally saw Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and others who had just come in not too far away. Yun Jian could also sense that Yi Kai was searching for her. Fortunately, Yun Jian's location was not easy to be found, so Yi Kai did not notice her. Yun Jian suppressed her disgust and turned to look at Han Biao and the single-eyed man called Mr. Ouyang in the distance. While Grandpa Kai was studying Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang in the distance, he also paid special attention to Yun Jian. Grandpa Kai frowned slightly when he saw Yun Jian looking into the distance. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, did not notice that at all. She was holding Yun Jian's hand and enjoying desserts at the dining table. Mr. Ouyang's voice finally came from the distance. "Where are the people from Flying Passage? Why aren't they here yet?" Leopard Gang had hosted such a large-scale gathering last year and invited famous people from all over the world. In fact, there weren't many people who came to participate. It was said that famous people from all over the world were invited to participate, but in reality, there were only a few famous people who would really come. Mr. Ouyang's words shocked everyone present. What? Did Mr. Ouyang not know that Flying Passage, the former second strongest gang in Zhe province, had been annihilated and replaced by Falcon Hall? In fact, Mr. Ouyang did not know about that. Or rather, the annihilation of a major gang like Flying Passage. It might cause a huge uproar in Zhe province. However, it was nothing if it was spread across the country or the world. Therefore, the news did not spread too far. It was only natural that these bosses who had just arrived in Zhe province did not hear about it. Han Biao's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Mr. Ouyang was friends with Flying Passage's boss. Now that he asked, Flying Passage was the former second strongest gang in Zhe province. Although its annihilation had nothing to do with him, Han Biao could not help but inwardly gasp. Yun Jian, who was standing in the distance, naturally heard Mr. Ouyang's question. She raised her eyebrows. Mr. Ouyang didn't suspect anything when Han Biao didn't answer for a long time. Instead, he laughed and said, "Could it be that Flying Passage is late again, just like last year's gathering? Haha, Su Zhoujing is so shameless. He was late again." As he spoke, Mr. Ouyang did not sense the gloomy atmosphere among the crowd. He continued to entertain himself by saying, "Su Zhouming will also be here today. He has been looking forward to it for a long time. Unfortunately, something big happened to the organization some time ago, so he couldn't leave. He didn't even make it back for the new year this year. Today he finally found the time to come back. How dare that brat Su Zhoujing be late?" Mr. Ouyang said. He didn't take Han Biao seriously at all and laughed first. Su Zhou was the leader of the Sky Bridge Gang, and Su Zhouming was Su Zhoujing's brother. Su Zhou had been personally killed by Yun Jian. Yun Jian listened to Mr. Ouyang's words at this time, and she could hear the spearhead. "Su Zhouming? Mr. Ouyang, this Su Zhouming can't be Su Zhoujing's brother Leopard Head, who is now working for Kosha mercenaries, right?" Han Biao asked with a trembling voice. Su Zhoujing and Flying Passage might not be that scary, but the scariest one was still Su Zhoming. Su Zhoming was Su Zhoujing's brother, codenamed Leopard Head, who was now working for kosher mercenaries. Kosher mercenaries. When the people present suddenly heard this title, they were so frightened that they straightened their bodies. The brother of Flying Passage's leader, Su Zhoujing, who was eliminated by Falcon Hall, was working for kosher mercenaries. And his brother didn't even know that his younger brother was dead. Heavens! Wouldn't Falcon Hall be done for then? Falcon Hall eliminated Flying Passage and killed Su Zhoming's brother, who was working for kosher mercenaries. Chapter 728. Yin Jian frowned slightly when she heard Han Biao's voice from afar. She pursed her lips without batting an eyelid. She was the one who killed Su Zhoujing. She was also the one who annihilated Flying Passage. Su Zhoujing had indeed used his brother to threaten her before he died. However, Yin Jian had ignored him and killed Su Zhoujing without hesitation. As for Su Zhoujing's brother, Su Zhoming, codenamed Leopard Head, he was indeed a member of the kosher mercenaries. Yin Jian had been busy annihilating the Inferno Ring and had completely forgotten about it. After the kosher mercenaries annihilated the Inferno Ring, they had requested for their members to isolate themselves from the outside world for a period of time, and to take over the Inferno Ring's forces as quickly as possible. This meant that the news of Su Zhoujing's death had yet to reach his brother, Su Zhoming, who was codenamed Leopard Head in the kosher mercenaries. Yin Jian lowered her gaze. Just as she thought of this, she heard Mr. Ouyang laugh loudly from afar. He boasted to Han Biao, "That's right. My brother, Su Zhoming, is a member of the kosher mercenaries." Ha ha ha. As he spoke, Mr. Ouyang's face was filled with pride and arrogance that no one could look down on. Mr. Ouyang and Su Zhoming were old friends, and Su Zhoming was Su Zhoujing's brother. Therefore, Su Zhoujing was also friends with Mr. Ouyang using his brother's reputation. This was also why Su Zhoujing's Flying Passage was the second strongest gang in Jia province. Therefore, when they heard Mr. Ouyang say that the brother of the dead Flying Passage boss was a member of the kosher mercenaries, everyone present broke out in cold sweat for Falcon Hall. Speaking of which, two organizations were absolutely not to be trifled with in the underworld. They were not led by the Hun group or the kosher mercenaries. Therefore, the first thought in everyone's mind was, Falcon Hall is doomed. Grandpa, isn't that Flying Passage gang? Even Dai Qingqing could not help but ask Grandpa Kai after hearing about Flying Passage gang. Wasn't Falcon Hall already annihilated Flying Passage? You're just a child. Don't talk too much. Eat your food. Grandpa Kai was afraid that Dai Qingqing would say something wrong. In such a grand occasion, it was different from other places. If one said something wrong here, it was very likely to lead to a fatal disaster. Yin Jian, I've finally found you. At that moment, Yi Kai who brought his family in Gao Meihan's eyes. Yun, despite you Yuzayadli. Yin Jian's eyes darkened. She had felt Yi Kai's gaze just now, and was disgusted, but she did not avoid it on purpose. The venue was only so big, so it was quite easy to find someone. At this moment, Mr. Ouyang's angry voice was heard from afar. What? Was annihilated. Who? Who killed Su Zhoujing? Who did it? Yin Jian did not hear what Han Biao said to Mr. Ouyang, because Yi Kai's shouts came from the side. However, Yin Jian could tell from Han Biao's lips what he said to Mr. Ouyang. Su Zhoujing is dead. Flying Passage is annihilated. Mr. Ouyang's original aura coupled with his sudden outburst made everyone's heart skip a beat. Even Han Biao shrunk back. He knew very well how powerful Mr. Ouyang was. Han Biao was about to mention Falcon Hall when Mr. Ouyang interrupted him. Chapter 729. After Mr. Ouyang's furious roar, most of the people present shifted their attention to Mr. Ouyang. Everyone at the scene panicked. Although they did not know who Mr. Ouyang was, they could tell from how the Leopard Gang's boss, Han Biao, treated Mr. Ouyang with such respect. This Mr. Ouyang was no ordinary person. Even Yi Kai and Gao Meihan, who were glaring at Yun Jian with hatred, shifted their attention to Mr. Ouyang in the distance without exception. At that moment, a crisp female voice was heard. Everyone present was naturally stunned. When they finally reacted, the whole place was in shock. It was especially so for the people standing beside her. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were not surprised at all, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and Yu Xiaodian all turned their heads to look at Yun Jian in disbelief. Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai were also looking at Yun Jian in shock. Yun Jian you. Dai Qingqing had just uttered the words when she was interrupted. Yun Jian was already walking toward Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang in front of everyone present. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei followed behind Yun Jian. The two of them followed Yun Jian like bodyguards protecting Yun Jian. For a moment, everyone's attention shifted to Yun Jian. Which one of the people who came to the party tonight did not dress up meticulously? What about Yun Jian? She was only wearing an ordinary outfit, but her delicate and beautiful face was eye-catching. In fact, many people had already looked at Yun Jian from the beginning, but most of them thought that Yun Jian came in with Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. After all, no one there would ever think that Yun Jian had entered the competition based on her own ability. After all, the invited companies and gangs were all famous in Jia province. At that moment, when Yun Jian spoke, apart from being shocked, most of the people present were in disbelief. Earlier, Mr. Ouyang had asked about the annihilation of Flying Passage and the murder of Su Zhouzheng. Why did this little girl jump out and say it was me? Was she the one who killed Su Zhouzheng and destroyed Flying Passage? What kind of joke was this? Did she think she was a Russian? Yun Jian, come back. Don't talk nonsense. Although Yi Kai was terrified, he did not want Yun Jian to be implicated. Yi Kai thought that Yun Jian was spouting nonsense. Yi Kai had fallen in love with Yun Jian at first sight, and he had planned to confess his love to Yun Jian after the party. Now that he saw Yun Jian step out, he could not hold back. Yu Xiaodian, before Yi Kai rushed over to Yun Jian. Kai my son, don't worry about her. That's the boss of Leopard Gang standing there. Then, Yu Xiaodian scolded Yun Jian, but she said very softly, this little tch, she's the one who's spouting nonsense. Serves her right for getting into trouble. Tui. Yu Xiaodian already had a problem with Yun Jian, and now that she saw Yun Jian walking over, she became even more agitated, and the words that came out of her mouth were not polite. Gao Meihan, who hated Yun Jian to the bone, smiled from the side. Very well. It seemed that this little tch Yun Jian had a death wish, so she did not have to do anything. At that moment, Yun Jian was already in front of Han Biao and Mr. Ouyang like a king under the protection of Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. Chapter 730. This little girl actually dared to provoke Mr. Ouyang so blatantly. Everyone present was stunned and stood rooted to the ground. They were all shocked speechless by the scene in front of them. From how the Leopard Gang's boss, Han Biao, respectfully fawned over Mr. Ouyang, it could be seen that this Mr. Ouyang was definitely a big shot. Moreover, from Mr. Ouyang's tone, he seemed to be very familiar with the brother of the former Sky Bridge Gang's boss, who was codenamed Leopard Head, who worked for the Kosha mercenaries. This was simply an alliance between the strong and the strong. Under such circumstances, Yun Jian actually ran in front of him like a madwoman and said that she killed his friend in front of him in a fit of anger. Is this little girl stupid? The people present didn't know Yun Jian's name, nor did they know her identity. However, as long as one had a mind of their own, they would think so. Where the hell did you come from, little girl? Do you want to die? Han Biao was slightly shorter than Yun Jian. He pointed at Yun Jian, thinking that Yun Jian was a little brat who came to cause trouble. Hurry up and throw her out. Han Biao was originally afraid of provoking Mr. Ouyang. Especially after Yun Jian said that, he was even more afraid. One had to know that this Mr. Ouyang was someone from an international arms family. Moreover, the arms family he belonged to was second only to the Cold Pavilion. Wait, just as Han Biao was about to ask someone to throw Yun Jian out of the venue, a mature and sharp female voice was heard. As the mature female voice sounded, everyone present turned to look at the entrance. he saw a graceful and luxurious woman in a classic cheongsam walking in from the entrance. This woman looked to be at most in her 20s. She looked very young. Beside this woman was another woman who looked older than her, in a low-cut evening gown. She was holding her hand. The two women who had suddenly appeared looked very similar. But in comparison, the younger woman who had spoken at the beginning, and was dressed in a black cheongsam, had a more refined temperament. This woman in a sexy black cheongsam was the one who spoke just now. At this moment, Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and stared at the person beside the woman in the black cheongsam. Wasn't the person who followed the woman in the cheongsam in a dignified manner Kai Wenhui? Feeling that everyone's eyes were on her, Kai Wenhui suddenly raised her head proudly, showing off her arrogance. Yun Jian smiled. Needless to say, the graceful and luxurious woman in a sexy black qipao was Kai Wenhui's younger sister, Kai Wenling. At the same time, Kai Wenling was also the wife of the leopard gang's leader Han Biao. "Madam, why are you here? Didn't you say to stay at home?" Although Han Biao was very arrogant outside, in front of his own wife, Kai Wenling, he did not even dare to fart. The reason for this was because Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling's family was prominent. To put it bluntly, the company founded by Grandpa Kai was famous throughout the Z Nation and held a high status. Another reason why Han Biao was so nervous about Kai Wenling was that Kai Wenling was already pregnant. However, it was only a month old, and the fetus had not yet appeared. "My sister is being bullied. How can I sit still at home?" As Kai Wenling spoke, she glared fiercely at Yun Jian. "Which blind fool dares to bully my wife's elder sister?" Han Biao then shouted and ran to Kai Wenling's side. Han Biao was shorter than Yun Jian. Moreover, Kai Wenhui and Kai Wenling were both about 1.65 meters tall. Kai Wenling was even wearing a pair of high heels. When Han Biao and Kai Wenling stood together, the height difference was simply laughable. However, in this atmosphere, no one dared to laugh or speak. Chapter 731. Kai Wenhui was a typical rich lady. Moreover, she was the wife of Longwen Group's CEO. She was protected by many people and had never been looked down upon. She was still angry about what had happened at the entrance of Exine Garden Hotel. Especially after knowing that Yun Jian would be attending tonight's gathering. She couldn't wait to teach Yun Jian a lesson. How could someone like Kai Wenhui, who had never been taken advantage of, take it? Knowing that Yun Jian would be attending tonight's gathering, she quickly called for her sister, Kai Wenling, to support her. After all, her sister Kai Wenling was half the hostess of tonight's gathering. Han Biao looked in the direction of Kai Wenhui's finger and saw Yun Jian, who had spoken so brazenly just now, standing right in front. Yun Jian crossed her arms in front of her chest and curled her lips. She didn't even look at Kai Wenhui. Yun Jian's gaze was fixed on Mr. Ouyang. Similarly, Mr. Ouyang didn't say anything. He was also looking at Yun Jian with a scrutinizing gaze. "It's you again?" Han Biao bellowed at Yun Jian at once when he heard her. Yun Jian's words earlier were a challenge to his authority. Now that he heard that Yun Jian had bullied his wife's sister, Han Biao wanted to kill Yun Jian immediately. Han Biao was the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang, the Leopard Pack. Therefore, his roar sent chills down everyone's spine. So what if I bullied her? I even killed Su Zhoujing and annihilated Flying Passage. Do you think I don't dare to bully her? Yun Jian sneered. However, in everyone's opinion, Yun Jian was definitely done for this time. Su Zhoujing is really dead. Flying Passage is really annihilated. Mr. Ouyang looked at Han Biao with a sinister expression. It seemed like he was asking his last question. What? My brother is dead? After Mr. Ouyang asked the last question, a loud voice suddenly came from the door. Everyone was stunned. Then a 1.9-meter-tall man walked in from the door. His body was as strong as an ox, and his muscles were taut. At first glance, one could tell that he was as strong as an ox. At this moment, the man heard an unbelievable piece of news. He stood upright at the entrance, and his tall figure and rough words sent chills down the spines of everyone present. Needless to say, the voice belonged to Su Zhoujing's elder brother, Su Zhoming, who was rumored to be working for the Kosha mercenaries. At this moment, Su Zhoming, who was standing at the door for the first time, had bloodshot eyes. He stared straight at the scene, his eyes emitting killing intent, as if he wanted to kill everyone present. Facing such a murderous Su Zhoming, Han Biao's short body could not help but shudder violently. Afraid that he would be implicated, Han Biao threw Kai Wenhui's matter to the back of his mind. He looked at Su Zhoming and knew that this person was from the kosher mercenaries. He immediately felt a sense of respect for Su Zhoming. A few months ago, Flying Passage was indeed annihilated. Su Zhojing was also killed by Falcon Hall. Han Biao said to Su Zhoming. Ah. Su Zhoming immediately howled madly when he heard that. Su Zhoming's eyes were bloodshot. He looked at Han Biao and asked, "Who killed my brother? Speak." Chapter 732. Yun Jian looked at Su Zhoming's wild face and spoke again without fear. Su Zhojing failed to kill me with a sniper, but he severely injured my men from Falcon Hall. Since he dared to hire a sniper, he deserves to die. As she spoke, Yun Jian's eyes sharpened. Her face was calm. Although she had the pretty face of a young girl, Yun Jian's face was filled with endless coldness. If she had not intervened that day, Su Zetian would have died. She was very protective of her own people. Yun Jian admitted that to herself. Since Su Zhojing dared to hire a sniper to assassinate her, and even injured Su Zetian by mistake, he deserved to die. Then he would have to pay the price, death. Together with Flying Passage, they would all be buried with him. Yun Jian had never regretted killing Su Zhojing. She never did anything she regretted. The words Falcon Hall were like an invisible palm that slapped everyone's heads at lightning speed. This young lady, is she from Falcon Hall? Furthermore, those who were able to attend the gathering were undoubtedly the strongest members of a gang or company. If that's the case, this young lady, you're Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa? Han Biao lived up to his name as the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang. Although he was not good-looking and short, he had a sharp mind. Although it was hard to believe that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss, Rakshasa. However, based on Yun Jian's behavior and what she said, it was hard to believe. If Han Biao still could not figure it out, then his position as the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang would be wasted. Falcon Hall's boss? Rakshasa. When everyone heard Han Biao's words, it was as if they had been struck by lightning. They all stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. It was as if they had pitied and despised a beggar on the side of the road. But the next second, the beggar had donned the king's clothes and stood at a height that no one could reach. Those who thought Yun Jian was being unreasonable and foolishly admitted that she had killed Su Zhojing and destroyed Flying Passage looked at Yun Jian in a different light. What? When Yu Xiaodan heard this from afar, she was so shocked that her eyeballs almost fell out. He suddenly found out that the person he had looked down on, and even mocked just a moment ago, had become the boss of the second strongest gang in Zhe Province in the next second. She was also the legendary boss of Falcon Hall, Rakshasa, who had charged into Flying Passage alone and killed Su Zhojing in front of everyone. What kind of feeling was this? Moreover, she was about the same age as his son, but she was already the boss of the second gang in Zhe Province. No matter who it was, they would be frightened and terrified by this sudden feeling of terror. It wasn't just Yu Xiaodan, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, Dai Qingqing and Grandpa Kai. All of them were terrified. For a moment, a sense of panic swept through everyone's body, giving people the feeling that they had been hit on the head with a taser. What do you think? Yun Jian sneered. At this moment, the expression on her face did not match the expression she should have at her age. Cold, arrogant, like a king overlooking all living beings. How dare you kill my brother? You're the one who killed him. Go to hell. Go to hell. Arg. Su Zhoming, who was beside her, had already gone mad. He glared at Yun Jian. The murderous intent in his eyes was like a raging fire that could not be extinguished. Chapter 733. Someone sighed to the person beside him. His words were filled with distrust towards Yun Jian. Most of the people present knew about the existence of the kosher mercenaries. It was the #1 mercenary group alongside the Hun organization. In today's world, who would dare to provoke the kosher mercenaries? Moreover, The kosher mercenaries had just annihilated the Inferno ring not long ago. Forget about those present daring to provoke such a terrifying mercenary group. Even Tin Panther's pack would not have the guts to challenge Gu Sha mercenaries' authority. This was the difference in strength. How dare you kill my brother? I want you dead. Dead. Su Zhoming's eyes were bloodshot, making his entire eyeball look blood-red. Everyone present was shocked by Su Zhoming's murderous aura. For a moment, those who were closer to Su Zhoming quickly hid in the corner. Brother Su Zhoming is your brother and mine. Now that he's dead, I will definitely avenge him. Mr. Ouyang looked at Yin Jian with hatred as he spoke to Su Zhoming. After Mr. Ouyang said that, he continued with a slightly arrogant tone. Brother Su, you're a member of the kosher mercenaries. Together with the power of my mercenary family, I don't believe that we can't annihilate a mere Falcon Hall. Mr. Ouyang was purely trying to get on Su Zhoming's good side. After all, as a member of the kosher mercenaries, Su Zhoming's status was higher than Mr. Ouyang's. Mr. Ouyang's words sounded like he was flaunting his status. However, the people present did not dare to say anything. It was not that they did not want to say anything, but they did not dare to. They could only whisper among themselves. I'm going to kill her today. I'm going to avenge my brother. Su Zhoming looked at Yin Jian. Suddenly he flipped his hands. Two small knives with the edges pointed downward appeared in Su Zhoming's hands. Seeing this, everyone present retreated 3 feet back in fear. What kind of place was the kosher mercenaries? It was a place where assassins and secret agents gathered. It could be said that most of the kosher mercenaries were assassins or secret agents. As for Su Zhoming, although he joined halfway, he had been in kosher mercenaries for a long time. How could he be weak? Seeing Su Zhoming like this, he was probably going to kill Yin Jian on the spot. Originally, some people had brought their children to the gathering today in order to make more connections. But no one would have thought that today's gathering would see blood. Was Su Zhoming going to kill Yin Jian in front of everyone? The corners of Yin Jian's mouth twitched slightly. She didn't panic at all. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were standing behind Yin Jian, were a little flustered. However, the two of them looked ahead calmly, hiding their panic deep in their hearts. Sister Jian had her own confidence in doing so. Even at the last moment, they would choose to believe her unconditionally. Go to hell. I'll show you the capability of the kosher mercenaries today. We're not something a boss of a small gang in Jia province like you can provoke. Die. Su Zhoming held the knives with both hands with the edges pointed downward. He threatened, looking at Yin Jian. Oh, Yin Jian merely smirked. She had heard a real joke. What did he mean by showing her the true capability of the kosher mercenaries? The kosher mercenaries won't accept trash like you, so you must die here today. Yin Jian sneered and changed her demeanor abruptly as she spoke in a cold tone. Chapter 734. Trash. Yin Jian actually called Su Zhoming, who was able to join the kosher mercenaries, trash? Everyone present was extremely shocked. In the distance, Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and the others had been watching this scene with astonishment since the beginning. If Yin Jian were anyone else present, they would probably be trembling in fear, and would even kneel in front of Su Zhoming. But who was Yin Jian? Su Zhoming would only have one outcome if he encountered her, and that was death. Su Zhoming held 2 blades in each hand, but he was not in a hurry to rush forward. After so many years in the kosher mercenaries, Su Zhoming was no longer a reckless person. Although the hatred for his brother's death was irreconcilable, Su Zhoming was also a sly old fox. Yin Jian, who could destroy his brother's flying passage, was definitely not an ordinary person. Su Zhoming could guarantee that if he were to fight with Yin Jian alone, it would be hard to tell if he would win or lose. Under such circumstances, all Su Zhoming could do was wait. This time, he did not return to Jia province alone. He also invited a few big shots from the kosher mercenaries. Among them, one of them was a big shot in the top 100 of the kosher mercenaries. He guessed that those big shots had not arrived yet. But as long as he waited a little longer, when those big shots arrived, he would definitely let Yin Jian know how to write the word death. Since she had provoked him, a big shot from the kosher mercenaries, This little girl could only die. Not to mention that she had killed his brother. Seeing that Su Zhoming did not make a move, Yun Jian's eyes moved slightly. Brother Su, go. With my strength and yours, do you think we can't kill her? Today, I will let her blood splatter on the spot. I will avenge brother Su Zhouzheng. Mr. Ouyang said fearlessly. But in reality, Mr. Ouyang was just a man who only knew how to talk and not act. Mr. Ouyang would never hate Yun Jian for Su Zhouzheng's death. All his previous hatred was just an act. The purpose of Mr. Ouyang's actions was only to please Su Zhoming. After all, Su Zhoming was a member of kosher mercenaries. Brother Ouyang, there's no hurry. Su Zhoming's eyes were dark as he reached out to stop Mr. Ouyang. His eyes were looking at Yun Jian from the corner of his eyes. He was so close to cutting Yun Jian into 1,000 pieces. Is this the place? At this moment, a bold voice suddenly came from the door. Following that, a group of burly and stocky men walked in casually from outside the door. When Su Zhoming heard this, he was immediately overjoyed. His reinforcements had arrived. Then, Su Zhoming hurriedly turned around. Yun Jian watched Su Zhoming's series of actions. She simply crossed her arms in front of her chest and stood there quietly watching. The first person to enter was a burly man. The most striking feature of these people was that they all had a skull mark on their arms. This was the mark of the kosher mercenaries. When Su Zhoming saw this, he went up and said to the man standing at the front, "Senior Xiong Wei, you're here." Yun Jian's slightly squinted eyes suddenly relaxed. She was really familiar with these people who had just entered. Weren't these people the kosher mercenaries that she met in the ancient tomb the last time she went to the tomb? The person leading them was Xiong Wei. At this moment, he glanced at Su Zhoming indifferently. Then his gaze lightly swept across the crowd, and suddenly swept across Yun Jian's figure. In the next second, Xiong Wei was stunned, and then strode towards Yun Jian. In front of everyone present, Xiong Wei lowered his head towards Yun Jian, and said respectfully, "You, why are you here?" One of Xiong Wei's subordinates was an old friend of Su Zhoming. Since they had nothing to do this time, they invited everyone to country Zhejiang province for a visit. In the end, Xiong Wei did not expect to meet Yun Jian here, who he had met in the tomb the last time. Chapter 735. Bear. Might was as excited as if he had met his idol. There was an unwritten rule in the kosher mercenaries. There was a ranking list in the organization. Everyone would be on the list and be ranked. It was said that Bear Might was ranked 99. Being able to be in the top 100 of the kosher mercenaries was already quite impressive. As for Su Zhoming, he was in the top 1,000 of the kosher mercenaries. To Su Zhoming, it was already an honor to be able to meet Bear Might, who was ranked 99 in the kosher mercenaries ranking list. Thus it was not hard to imagine Bear Might's surprise when he saw Yun Jian again. Yun Jian's strength and ability were enough to make Bear Might and the others completely submit to her. However, she also had another identity. She was the boss of the kosher mercenaries. The boss of the kosher mercenaries. This was a person that Bear Might would never have thought of meeting in the past. However, during the trip to the ancient tomb, Bear Might had followed Yun Jian around. However, in the end, Yun Jian had robbed their off-road vehicle. Of course, to be robbed by the boss of the kosher mercenaries was something that others could not get even if they wanted it. At this moment Bear Might was meeting Yun Jian again. It was like a great honor for him. The people present were all discerning people. Everyone was watching with their eyes wide open. Who was Su Zhoming? He was a member of the kosher mercenaries. For Su Zhoming to lower himself to flatter Bear Might was enough to show that Bear Might's status was higher than Su Zhoming's. But what was the situation now? Why did Bear Might, who had a higher status than Su Zhoming, speak to Yun Jian in such a respectful tone? The word sir was enough to show Bear Might's respect for Yun Jian. "I'm here for a party." Yun Jian brushed her hair behind her ear and returned a casual smile to Bear Might. She didn't expect to meet them here by coincidence. "As long as you're happy," Bear Might said to Yun Jian very respectfully. Su Zhoming and Mr. Ouyang, as well as everyone present, were dumbfounded by this turn of events. What was going on? Senior Xiongwei, how did you? Do you know this damned woman? Su Zhoming pointed at Yun Jian and asked Xiongwei in surprise. Perhaps because Su Zhoming's tone revealed too much disrespect for Yun Jian Bear. Might frowned and slapped Su Zhoming, who was over 1.9 meters tall. Scram! Is she someone you can insult? When Xiongwei heard that Su Zhoming was disrespectful to Yun Jian, he punched Su Zhoming to the ground. Then, Xiongwei took out a Browning pistol from his waist and pointed it at Su Zhoming. You are courting death in front of me, Bear, Might said and was about to shoot Su Zhoming. Su Zhoming dared to insult his Kosha mercenaries boss to his face? This was simply a slap to the Kosha mercenaries' face in front of others. Don't. We are all on the same side, Seeing that Bear Might was really going to kill Su Zhoming, one of Su Zhoming's old acquaintances quickly ran out to stop Bear Might. Scram! Bear Might was furious. Su Zhoming was humiliated in front of everyone, so he was unwilling to accept it. Especially a man like him, who was insulted like this. Moreover, it seemed that Bear Might and the others would not help him. His brother Su Zhojing could not die in vain. Hence, when Su Zhoming stood up, he whipped out 2 small knives with the edges facing downward and charged at Yun Jian. The people present were already shocked by the scene just now. At this moment, Su Zhoming suddenly grabbed 2 knives and rushed toward Yun Jian. This scene made everyone present unable to react. Yun Jian! Dai Qingqing could not help but shout from afar. At this moment Yun Jian stood still. She narrowed her eyes and swung her hand from her pocket at Su Zhoming. A butterfly knife glittering with silver light flew out from her hand. When everyone finally reacted. Chapter 736. Su Zhoming, who was holding 2 small knives with the blades facing downward, looked up at once when he sensed danger, and saw the butterfly knives that Yun Jian had flung at him. Leopard Head, come back. Don't be stupid. Bear Might's subordinate, who was Su Zhojing's old friend, shouted at Su Zhoming. Leopard Head was Su Zhoming's code name. Although Bear Might didn't tell his subordinates that Yun Jian was the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, the subordinates who came with Bear Might today had met Yun Jian in the ancient tomb. They had all seen Yun Jian's strength. Forget Su Zhoming. Yun Jian's ability to enter the cave that no one except C.E. Adam and Emo's son had entered the ancient catacomb where the arrow traps were circulating. Even if everyone here added together, they might not be as strong as Yun Jian. That was why this old friend of Su Zhoming's called out. However, Su Zhoming was already blinded by hatred. His brother was dead. Even if he died, he wanted this woman to be buried with him. Su Zhoming grabbed the 2 daggers that were facing downwards and dodged to the side under everyone's shocked and fearful gazes, as they retreated in large strides. In spite of it, Yun Jian's butterfly knife was too fast and powerful. Although Su Zhoming managed to dodge the fatal blow, he was still stabbed in his left shoulder by the blade. Su Zhoming was only a meter away from Yun Jian. However, Su Zhoming's hands that were holding the 2 knives, which were about to rush towards Yun Jian, clearly paused. Other than the gangsters, there were also businessmen and politicians present. There were even many people who brought their own children here. However, when everyone saw the sudden change in front of them, they were all dumbfounded. There was blood. There was really blood. Yun Jian suddenly stabbed the butterfly knife into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. Her speed was too fast and too fierce. Even Su Zhoming, who was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, was stabbed in the shoulder by Yun Jian. He couldn't dodge her attack. Die. Because he was stabbed in the left shoulder, Su Zhoming's reaction was slow for a moment. Then, he immediately reacted and madly roared at Yun Jian, while holding 2 small knives. Everyone present gasped. Dai Qingqing, who was standing in the distance, would have rushed over if Grandpa Kai hadn't held her back. However, Su Zhoming, who had been stabbed in the left shoulder, was slightly stunned. To Yun Jian, killing him was enough. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. In the next second, she lightly ran forward 2 steps under everyone's gaze. Her pair of slender legs were wrapped in long pants, but it unconsciously gave people a sense of beauty. Just as everyone was mesmerized by her beauty, Yun Jian bent her beautiful legs. She lightly stepped on her small feet and dodged to Su Zhoming's left. From the moment Su Zhoming rushed towards Yun Jian with the two knives in his hands, to the moment Yun Jian stabbed Su Zhoming's left shoulder with the knife, until now, only 10 seconds had passed. However, between experts, many things could happen in 10 seconds. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jian was one step ahead of Su Zhoming. She grabbed the butterfly knife that was stabbed into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. Everyone's eyelids twitched violently. A bad premonition swept through everyone's body. In the next second, they saw Yun Jian grab the butterfly knife that was already stabbed into Su Zhoming's left shoulder. She held the butterfly knife and slashed it along Su Zhoming's left shoulder, from his left shoulder to his heart. Ah! Before Su Zhoming could react, the area from his left shoulder to his heart had already been dissected along the way. In the next second, Su Zhoming's eyes widened as he slowly fell backwards. When everyone saw such a bloody scene, they were so frightened that all the hairs on their bodies stood on end. Yun Jian, she actually dared to kill a member of the kosher mercenaries. Chapter 737. Su Zhoming didn't even realize that he was going to die in Yun Jian's hands. However, everyone present saw it clearly. How old was this little girl? She was at most 16 or 17 years old. But the strength she just displayed couldn't be described with the word shocking. She was actually holding the handle of the butterfly knife that was stuck in Su Zhoming's left shoulder. She pressed the butterfly knife against Su Zhoming's left shoulder, and as if she was cutting tofu, she continuously cut from his left shoulder to his heart. The knife directly stabbed into Su Zhoming's body, from his left shoulder to his heart, and then fiercely stabbed in. Many of the people present were the gang leaders of various cities. Zhe province was a big province, and there were many cities. Even though these gang leaders had experienced a lot of ups and downs, they had never seen such a horrifying technique. Holding a knife and cutting across a person's body, and then fiercely stabbing into the person's heart. Yun Jian's technique was terrifying. Even if these gang leaders saw it, they couldn't help but feel terrified. No one present dared to try such a bloody technique. Even these gang leaders who were used to bloody scenes felt terrified. Yun Jian, on the other hand, could kill Su Zhoming so cruelly without even batting an eyelid. Ah! Someone's dead. Someone's dead. Someone was already so frightened that they cried out. At this moment, Yun Jian had already pulled out the butterfly knife from the heart of the already dead Su Zhoming. Then she calmly took out a pack of napkins from her trouser pocket and gently wiped the blood off the butterfly knife. Ah! She. Yu Xiaodan was so scared that she screamed out loud, and then she was afraid that Yun Jian would see her, so she desperately covered her mouth with her hand, and her eyes widened until they couldn't be opened anymore. Yun Jian actually killed someone, and most importantly, her method of killing was so cruel. Once she thought about how she used disdainful words to ridicule and attack Yun Jian, Yu Xiaodan felt that she was done for. Yi Kai stared at Yun Jian in disbelief as well. He could not imagine that such a beautiful girl could be fearless when it came to killing. This reminded Yi Kai and Gao Meihan of what Yun Jian had said at the skating rink. Not only can I do this, I can also kill you. Do you believe me? If Yi Kai and Gao Meihan did not take it seriously when Yun Jian said that to them back then, the feeling Yun Jian gave them now was, "You're the one who's going to make a living." She really knew how to kill. She actually dared. Moreover, the people she killed were not ordinary people. They were kosher mercenaries. For a moment, screams could be heard everywhere. Other than Yi Kai and Gao Meihan, there were also Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai, Han Biao, Kai Wenhui, Kai Wenling, and Mr. Ouyang standing in the distance. No one looked at Yun Jian with normal eyes. The scene immediately became chaotic. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, Bear Might suddenly raised his Browning pistol and fired 3 shots at the ceiling. After the 3 shots, the scene instantly quieted down. "If you keep screaming, you'll die right now." Bear Might roared in a rather domineering manner. Everyone was silent. "Do you have anything else to say?" After speaking, Bear Might turned his head and looked at Yun Jian. Chapter 738. Go back and tell Snake. Lizard to remove Su Zhoming's name from kosher mercenaries. From today onwards, Su Zhoming will disappear from this world forever. Yin Jian looked sideways at Bear. Might as she spoke, but the words that came out of her mouth were awe-inspiring. In fact, the skills that Yin Jian had just displayed had shocked Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei. However, what Yin Jian had just said had shocked and bewildered everyone present. Remove Su Zhoming's name from kosher mercenaries? Who did she think she was? How could she have the ability to speak in kosher mercenaries? However, due to Yin Jian's strength, no one present dared to take her words lightly. Yes, Bear. Might nodded after hearing her words. At this moment only Bear Might knew the reason. Why could Yin Jian speak in kosher mercenaries? Of course, it was because Yin Jian was the boss of kosher mercenaries. The entire kosher mercenaries belonged to her. What was a mere Su Zhoming to her? Snake. Lizard. Isn't Snake Lizard the subordinate of the boss of kosher mercenaries? She's also the leader of kosher mercenaries. Just when everyone was puzzled, a weak voice was heard. When they first heard this voice, everyone present was slightly stunned. Those who were in the underworld would naturally recognize this. However, after this person spoke, there was still an uproar in the crowd. Mr. Ouyang, who had been speaking up for Su Zhoming, did not even dare to make a sound. At this moment, everyone present was thinking, if Yin Jian can even order the leader of kosher mercenaries, then she must be. Just when everyone present was thinking of this, Yin Jian slightly lifted her feet and walked towards Su Zhoming's corpse. Then, as if she knew what everyone present was thinking, she slowly took out a small airtight container from her trouser pocket. This airtight container was covered with a layer of something, as if it was wrapped to prevent the body fluid from flowing out of the container. Everyone's surprise was thrown to the back of their minds by Yin Jian's actions. Don't even think about guessing my identity. At this moment, Yin Jian's voice was heard again. She curled her lips and squinted her eyes slightly. Her beautiful and delicate face was very delicate. At the same time, she took out the airtight container from the transparent bag. This airtight container was very small, just enough for Yin Jian to hold it in her palm. She opened the airtight container's lid and said, "Because I will be angry." Yin Jian's voice was strange. Yun's voice's strange voice. At this moment, Shi's mouth. Ants. Just as the liquid in the sealed container spilled out and dripped onto Su Zhoming, Yin Jian's voice rang again. Once I get angry, this is what happens to all of you. At the end, Yin Jian's words were slightly heavier. In front of everyone's eyes, Su Zhoming's body was covered by the container's liquid. In just a few seconds, Su Zhoming's body was instantly sucked dry and turned into a pool of blood. In the end, not even his bones could be seen. Silence. It was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. A living person turned into a pool of blood in front of everyone's eyes. That was not all. Coupled with Yin Jian's strange words, those with better endurance might still be able to watch. But for people like Yu Xiaodan, she was so scared that her whole body was trembling. She even had the urge to pee. Chapter 739. Yi Kai and Gao Meihan shuddered again. Especially Gao Meihan. She had initially thought that Yin Jian was going to snatch Yi Kai away from her, so she was already plotting how to deal with Yin Jian. But what about Yin Jian? She was a devil who killed without batting an eyelid. Yes, she was a devil. She turned a corpse into a puddle of blood, with just a small bottle of potion. What if the potion accidentally came into contact with his skin? Everyone present could not believe what they had just witnessed. Yin Jian, who stood a distance away, smirked. She kept her lips curled up, and the slight curve of her lips gave the people present quite a shock. Thud. Just as everyone was deep in thought, the sealed container in Yin Jian's hand fell to the ground. The sealed container was made of a special material, so it would not shatter when it fell to the ground. However, when the crowd recalled that the liquid inside would turn a person into a puddle of blood once it touched their skin, they could not help but shudder. No one had ever seen such a thing in the market. Some of them would never see it in their entire lives. This was because it was invented by Qingyu. Elder Qingyu invented corpse-dissolving water? One of Bear Mite's underlings who was standing next to him asked in horror, when he saw Yunjian turning Su Zhoming into a puddle of blood with the corpse-dissolving water. Qingyu? Is she the legendary youngest elder of Gusha mercenaries, Lady Venom? Someone asked in bewilderment. Qingyu was prominent in the Kosha mercenaries. Other than the boss, Yunjian, she was the youngest elder of Kosha mercenaries. Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard were elders as well, but they were much older than Qingyu. Qingyu's code name was Lady Venom. Her real name was Qingyu. This was something everyone knew. I remember that Lady Venom is the personal subordinate of the Kosha mercenaries' boss. The poison she invented is the best in the world. Until now, no one can compare to her. Also, the things that Venom Lady developed are only used on the bosses of the Kosha mercenaries. The man hurriedly shared his knowledge with him. Kosha mercenaries' boss? Yunjian? A cloud of doubt flashed through the minds of everyone present. Elder Qingyu has always been a friendly person. She's willing to provide us with any poison that she's developed. Bear Mite knew that Yunjian did not want to reveal her identity, so he immediately defended Yunjian. The bottle of medicine in Yunjian's hand was indeed given to her by Qingyu. She had even asked for a few bottles back then. Although Qingyu claimed that Yunjian had taken away her precious poison, the truth was that she had given Yunjian 10 bottles in one go. 10 bottles of this corpse-dissolving water was a sky-high price in the underworld. This was because no one had ever developed a corpse-dissolving water that could turn a person into a puddle of blood without leaving any traces behind. Qingyu, on the other hand, could. She had developed it. However, Qingyu was never stingy when it came to giving things to Yunjian. The crowd let it go after hearing Bear Mite's words. After all, if Yunjian was really the boss of the Kosha mercenaries, why would she be the boss of the province's second-ranked mafia group? Was this not more unbelievable than the sky raining blood? After dealing with Su Zhoming, Yunjian turned around and looked straight at Han Biao. Under everyone's shocked gaze, Yunjian walked step by step toward Han Biao. What are you doing? Before Han Biao could speak, Kai Wenhui, who was standing next to him, screamed in fear. Although Han Biao was panicking inwardly since he had dealt with Yunjian in such a manner earlier, he appeared unfazed. Chapter 740. Everyone thought that Yunjian was going to avenge herself. After all, Kai Wenhui had pointed at Yunjian and complained to Han Biao in front of everyone. As for Han Biao's roar at Yunjian, anyone who wasn't stupid would be able to tell from his tone of voice. If Yunjian really wanted to take revenge on Han Biao for insulting her just now, the people present wouldn't be so shocked. After all, Yunjian was just a young girl. At her age, she was already at a more vengeful age. It was normal for her to get angry when others said a few words about her. However, what Yunjian wanted wasn't revenge, but the Leopard's gang? If Yunjian had asked Han Biao for the Leopard's gang from the beginning, no one would have taken her seriously even if she was Falcon Hall's Rakshasa. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, although Falcon Hall was powerful, there was still a certain distance between them and the Leopard's gang. If Falcon Hall was a rising star, then the Leopard's gang was a well-established gang with a solid foundation. However, after the current situation, everyone present changed their view of Yunjian. She even knew Elder Snake Lizard and Elder Qingyu from the Kosha mercenaries. Then, her future achievements were absolutely immeasurable. Han Biao didn't expect Yunjian to ask for the Leopard's gang from him. He swallowed hard and then said to Yunjian, "What's the second choice?" Yunjian didn't intend to give him a chance to refuse. Yunjian's deep black eyes flashed. The corner of her lips curled up slightly, and arrogant words came out of her beautiful throat. The second choice. She purposely stalled for a moment before Yunjian gripped the butterfly knife in her palm. In the next second, the knife in her hand was twirled twice in a nimble motion. Then, Yunjian pulled out a smile. She looked at Han Biao and said, "If I kill you, the Leopard's gang will still be mine." What a big tone. Everyone present could not help but think so. However, Because of Yun Jian's previous performance, no one doubted the authenticity of Yun Jian's words. Moreover, Yun Jian was very familiar with the elders of the Kosha mercenaries. The position of the elders in the Kosha mercenaries was second only to the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. Under the suppression of such a situation, everyone present had no choice but to submit. At this moment, Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who had been following Yun Jian the whole way, were also shocked. However, in contrast, although the two of them were surprised, they did not reveal their surprise on their faces. In the face of Yun Jian's overbearing aura, Han Biao was finally convinced. Alright, other than agreeing, under such circumstances, what else could Han Biao do? Although Han Biao's looks were unsatisfactory, and he was short, he had a clever mind. Although he did not look so powerful on the surface, since he could become the boss of Zhe Province's #1 gang, and sit in this position for so many years, he must have his own strong side. Moreover, Kai Wenling was so beautiful, and Kai Wenling's family background was even more outstanding than Han Biao's gang. Han Biao being able to marry Kai Wenling was like a fresh flower inserted in cow dung. Since he was able to marry Kai Wenling, it was enough to see that he was a powerful person. Happy cooperation. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly and said these words in a relaxed manner. All the witnesses present were shocked by Yun Jian's actions. Chapter 741. Han Biao rolled his eyes in his heart, but he still said, "Happy working with you." How was that a happy working with you? Han Biao wanted to die at that moment. The reason why Han Biao agreed to hand over the leopard gang to Yun Jian so easily was because, if he did not agree, Yun Jian would kill him. That was one of the reasons. The biggest reason was that he had heard that Yun Jian had used a similar method to take Falcon Hall under her wing. After Dragon Head Gang was taken under Yun Jian's wing, it became the current Falcon Hall. Yun Jian herself used the name of Falcon Hall's boss, but handed over all the gang's affairs to Su Zetian. If Yun Jian wanted to kick him out of the gang after taking over the gang, Han Biao would consider whether to compromise or not. According to the information Han Biao received, Yun Jian immediately changed the name of Dragon Head Gang to Falcon Hall after she took over. As for Yun Jian, she did not care about the gang's affairs at all. She was merely a figurehead at best. What moved Han Biao even more was that ever since Yun Jian led Falcon Hall, she had single-handedly destroyed the Sky Bridge Gang in less than half a year. She even took over the Sky Bridge Gang in the shortest time possible. This made Dragon Head Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall, one of the last few gangs in Zhe Province, quickly become the second gang in Zhe Province. It was only today that Han Biao realized that Yun Jian's strength was so strong because she knew the Kosha mercenaries' elders. Those were the elders who could directly replace the Kosha mercenaries' boss and directly dispatch the Kosha mercenaries. The facts proved that if Han Biao were to fight with Yun Jian, he would admit that he was no match for her just based on the fact that Yun Jian knew the Kosha mercenaries. Therefore, he might as well go all the way and agree to hand the Leopard Gang over to Yun Jian. Or perhaps, after becoming Yun Jian's subordinate, she could lead the Panthers Gang to greater heights and become the #1 gang in the country, or even step onto the international stage. It had to be said that Han Biao's heart was faintly stirred. Moreover, as long as Han Biao joined an organization and became a member, he would be a loyal and devoted person. His greatest strength was that he would never betray the people in his own organization. Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, who were standing not far away, were so shocked that they couldn't control themselves. Duan Lei, in particular, had gone through a long journey to make a name for himself in Longmen City with Su Zetian and a group of brothers. But what about Yun Jian? How long had it been? She had taken over the Leopard Gang without expending a single soldier? Yun Jian's appetite was indeed huge. That was what everyone present thought. But at the same time, they couldn't help but add a sentence in their hearts. Yun Jian may have a big appetite, but she has such strength, so why should we be afraid? The rest of the gathering went smoothly. Of course, due to what happened earlier, those who were fearful left early. People like Yi Kai, Gao Meihan, and the rest had left long ago. Dai Qingqing, on the other hand, continued to talk to Yun Jian fearlessly with Grandpa Kai. The leopard gang was not like the dragon head gang back then, so it would take some time for Yun Jian to take the leopard gang into her Falcon Hall and change all the leopard gang's territories and members into Falcon Hall. Yun Jian was not afraid that Han Biao would go back on his word. Based on the current situation, it was Han Biao who was afraid that Yun Jian would go back on her word. After all, Han Biao was the leader of the top gang in Jia province, but he could not leave. With Yun Jian around, as long as he was not an idiot, he would definitely join Falcon Hall. Chapter 742. After the gathering ended, Han Biao gave Yun Jian his contact, and Yun Jian brought Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei for supper. Other than Zhang Jifan and Duan Lei, Yun Jian also brought Dai Qingqing, Grandpa Kai Bear, Might and the rest. Bear. Might was flattered to be invited to supper by Yun Jian. Others did not know, but Bear. Might was aware of Yun Jian's identity. When Yun Jian learned from Dai Qingqing that there was a seafood barbecue stall nearby, she led the group there without hesitation. When he saw Yun Jian leading the group into the seafood barbecue stall, Bear Might could not help grinning. It turned out that the boss of kosher mercenaries would bring them to the stall for barbecue too. Looking at how Yun Jian ordered the menu skillfully, Bear Might could not help grumbling inwardly. So the boss of kosher mercenaries, the richest woman in the secret agent and assassin world, would actually eat the food sold by such a stall. After supper, Yun Jian returned to Xan Garden Hotel with a stomach full of grease. Yun Jian went home early the next morning. Bear Might and the rest left early in the morning, coming over to greet Yun Jian before they left. Dai Qingqing waved goodbye to Yun Jian, with tears in her eyes. Yun Jian comforted her by saying that they would meet again next time. They would indeed meet again next time. Since the Panthers Pack's headquarters was here, Yun Jian had to go through a lot of procedures to take them under her Falcon Hall. Especially since Han Biao was from here, Yun Jian would definitely have to travel back and forth in the future. With Dai Qingqing sending them off, Duan Lei drove off with Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan in his car. After about 2 hours of driving, Duan Lei drove Yun Jian and Zhang Jifan back to Longmen City. Once back in Longmen City, Duan Lei could not help hurrying to Falcon Hall's headquarters to report the good news. Falcon Hall would soon become the biggest gang in Jia province. It was all thanks to Yun Jian. New crews belonged to Yun Jian as well. Zhang Jifan's friendship with Duan Lei and the rest had deepened, so he was delighted to see Falcon Hall doing well. After all, the wider Falcon Hall's future path was, at the same time, a representation of how powerful New Cruz's backing was. It was noon when Yun Jian returned home. Winter had left quietly as the beginning of spring enveloped the city. It was noon when the sun was shining. The temperature during the day was comparable to summer's rain. Yun Jian returned home under the warm sun. Once she entered, Yun Jian saw Lan Su helping Adam down the stairs. Yun Jian, you're back? When she saw Yun Jian, Lan Su had forgotten that Adam was heavily injured and could not walk alone. Lan Su accidentally let go of his hand. Oh my, what the hell? What are you doing? Is this how you serve a patient? Adam's lips twitched exaggeratedly. I'm sorry, I forgot. Lan Su quickly held Adam's hand again and helped him down the stairs gently. Yun Jian pressed her lips together and asked, "Where's my mom?" "Auntie, she went to try on the wedding gown with Auntie Dong Ruan," Lan Su said, remembering Qin Yura's request. "Where are they?" Yun Jian asked again. "United Luenmai Shopping Center." "Young mistress, you can go take a look." Adam held his leg and slowly walked down the stairs with Lan Su's help. Once she heard that Qin Yuru had gone to try on the wedding gown, Yun Jian turned to leave the house and headed to the shopping center. Chapter 743. I'm sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. Lan Su's awkward voice could be heard faintly. It was Lan Su's first time serving someone. She had always been the one being served in the past. Even when the shaman tribe had declined in Yulong mainland, Lan Su was not reduced to the point where she had to serve someone. Perhaps it was because she felt that she had let Adam down. so Lan Su could be said to be extremely tolerant of Adam. Stupid woman. After hearing Lan Su's words, Adam, who was about to criticize Lan Su, loosened his mouth and finally spat out these 3 words. On the other hand, Yun Jian was already on her way to United Luenmai Shopping Center. United Luenmai Shopping Center, as the name suggested, could buy most items in Longmen City. While there were not many shops selling wedding gowns, there were a few of them in United Luenmai Shopping Center. In Longmen City, United Luenmai Shopping Center was considered one of the bigger shopping platforms. Yun Jian did not know which shop Qin Yiru and Dong Wan had gone to, but Yun Jian was patient enough to look for them. Due to the hot weather at noon, Yun Jian only wore a white hoodie with long sleeves. The pure white sweater on her body added a sense of youthfulness and delicateness to her. Those who did not know would think that Yun Jian was just a young girl brimming with youthfulness when they passed by and saw Yun Jian. Yun Jian had yet to find Qin Yiru after walking around several wedding gown shops in United Luenmai Shopping Center. She was not in a hurry either. The day before yesterday, which was Friday night, Yun Jian heard from Qin Yiru that she would be attending a high school reunion with Dong Wan this afternoon. Yun Jian could guess that Dong Wan was probably free today and had applied for leave to attend the reunion. Once it was over, she would accompany Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown. Dong Wan was a high-ranking official, so she usually did not have time. It was probably because she had not started work these few days that Dong Wan and Qin Yiru went to the reunion first upon returning from the countryside, and went shopping in the afternoon to pick out a wedding gown for Qin Yiru. May 21st was Qin Yiru and Gu Yunjian's wedding date. It was already March now, just over 2 months away from the wedding date. It was already considered late for Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown now. Unfortunately, Gu Junjian had been busy with military affairs these few days. Yun Jian also knew that Gu Junjian did not have time to accompany Qin Yiru to pick out a wedding gown. Since Dong Wan was free today, she naturally did it on behalf of Gu Junjian. Just as she thought of this, Yun Jian turned a corner. When she looked up, she inadvertently saw Qin Yiru standing in the distance. Dong Wan was also standing beside Qin Yiru. Yun Jian slightly restrained her expression and was about to walk over with a smile when she saw a group of people standing in front of Qin Yiru and Dong Wan in the distance. Qin Yiru and Dong Wan did not enter the wedding gown shop. The group of people standing in front of Qin Yiru and Dong Wan looked to be about the same age as the two of them. A woman who stood at the front was lecturing Qin Yiru in a loud, glib voice. "Don't be like this. I was wondering why the two of you left after attending the reunion. It's a reunion after all. Everyone went to karaoke in the afternoon. But the two of you left, and even said that you had something to do. If we didn't take this path to the karaoke, we wouldn't have seen the two of you. It's not easy for classmates to gather together. The two of you are really. Also, Qin Yiru, didn't you drop out of high school halfway through? Aren't you already married? Now you're here to pick out a wedding gown. Are you planning to get married again?" Chapter 744. Even the passers-by on the street could not help but stop and turn to glance at Qin Yiru when they heard the woman pointing at Qin Yiru and saying that she was planning to remarry. No matter which era it was, people who remarried would always be gossiped about, especially at Qin Yiru's age. If this woman stood on the street and said that she was planning to remarry, some passers-by would definitely overthink. If it was accidentally overheard by acquaintances, it would spread like wildfire. Even if it was a good thing, it would become a bad thing. "Young Whiting, that's enough. You were the one who talked the most in high school. What does Yira's life have to do with you?" Before the woman could finish, Dong Wan refuted her with a frown in front of everyone. Compared to her high school self, Dong Wan was more mature now, but a person's personality would not change. When someone pointed at Qin Yiru, Dong Wan would stand up for Qin Yiru as usual. Qin Yiru had a weaker personality. Dong Wan was the reason why she was not bullied by the troublemakers in high school. Dong Wan was a true career woman. She was a high-ranking official now, so she was naturally capable to reach her current position. The woman named Yang Whiting had been at odds with Dong Won since high school, especially Qin Yuru back then. Although Qin Yuru had put on some weight now and looked older due to hard work, Qin Yuru was still a famous beauty when she was in high school. At least in that era, Qin Yuru could be considered a natural beauty. However, her mother arranged for her to marry Yun Gang after she dropped out of school. That was how her miserable first half of her life began. If it were not for Yun Jian and Yun Yi's encouragement, Qin Yuru might not have dared to divorce Yun Gang until now. Fine. I'm not going to meddle in your business. Haha, it's a class reunion, and everyone invited you to karaoke in the afternoon out of goodwill. You're the only one who didn't give us any face. You're still in the right? Yang Whiting was still aggressive. With that said, Yang Whiting didn't wait for Dong Won to refute. She turned around and asked the group of classmates, "Isn't that right, everyone? Am I right?" Yang Whiting's figure was now very well maintained, and her face was also smeared with all kinds of cosmetics. However, when her classmates gathered for lunch, Yang Whiting showed off her husband's identity. Yang Whiting's husband was the director of a plastic processing factory in Longmen City, and was already worth millions. After hearing Yang Whiting's boastful bragging, the other students immediately started to flatter Yang Whiting when they heard her words. Everyone was thinking that it was better to please Yang Whiting than to please Qin Yuru, who was born in the countryside. Yang Whiting, you're right. A fat middle-aged man with a big belly expressed his agreement with Yang Whiting's words. As the middle-aged man spoke, he turned around to scold Qin Yuru. It's a class reunion today. If both of you really have something to do, we won't scold you for leaving so early. But if you don't even want to go shopping with us, you should have said it earlier. We don't lack the two of you. It was a nice reunion, but look what happened now. You've made us unhappy too. You're the ones who are happy now, aren't you? The middle-aged man's words were getting more and more ridiculous as he spoke. Qin Yuru had already planned to come out early to settle on her wedding dress today. Chapter 745. Qin Yuru could not come up with any explanation. She had a weak personality to begin with. Yang Whiting and this middle-aged man were famous blabbermouths when Qin Yuru was in high school. In the words of that time, even dead things could be said to be alive. Today's matter was actually very simple. Dong Won took the whole day off today. Dong Won was supposed to go to work now. Dong Won was a high-ranking official, so it was not easy for her to take a day off. Therefore, Qin Yuru made arrangements early in the morning. After she and Dong Won attended the class reunion in the afternoon, they would go to a few bridal shops in the Lianmei shopping center to try on wedding dresses. It was best to decide on the wedding dresses. After all, it was almost the wedding date. However, Qin Yuru did not expect that when she and Dong Won bid farewell to everyone in the afternoon, she simply said that she had something to do in the afternoon and could not go to the karaoke with her classmates. In this era, there were only a few kinds of class reunions in middle school and high school. Either everyone gathered together for a meal, then went to karaoke in the afternoon, and went home in the evening. Qin Yuru did not expect that after she and Dong Won left, they would actually meet this group of classmates who were having a class reunion in the Lianmei shopping center. This was originally not a big deal. However, after Yang Whiting and the pot-bellied middle-aged man, it became Qin Yuru and Dong Won did not want to attend the class reunion with them. Then, the two of them found an excuse to go shopping by themselves. Qin Yuru did not expect such a small matter to be blown out of proportion. The middle-aged man with a big belly and fat all over his body was called Shenzhong. His name sounded simple and honest, but he wasn't like that at all. The reason why Shenzhong spoke up for Yang Whiting and Qin Yuru was because he heard that Yang Whiting's husband was the CEO of a plastic processing factory. His net worth was over 1 million yuan. He was instantly tempted. Shenzhong had just lost his job not long ago. Therefore, he wanted to use this opportunity to flatter Yang Whiting and beg her to arrange for him to work in her husband's company. Shenzhong, is there something wrong with you? Do you think we'll have to go with you if you say that? Good. Since you've said so, I'll tell you that Yuru and I don't want to attend the class reunion with you. If you have any class gatherings in the future, Don't look for us. Dong Yuan was infuriated by the two unreasonable people, Yang Whiting and Shen Zhong. She immediately raised her voice and spoke in an unpleasant tone. Dong Yuan's personality was not as weak as Qin Yiru's. Especially when the other party was being unreasonable, she immediately shouted, Look! Look! You admitted it yourself. Yang Whiting shrugged her shoulders. In fact, Yang Whiting had stolen the limelight at the class reunion this afternoon. Yang Whiting felt that Dong Yuan and Qin Yiru were the two most useless people in the class. That was why the two of them were in a hurry to leave right after lunch. When Yang Whiting was in high school, she had a small conflict with Dong Yuan and Qin Yiru. Therefore, it was actually Yang Whiting who led them here today to bump into Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan, who came to United Luenmai Shopping Center to pick out wedding dresses. Her motive was obvious as well. She wanted to embarrass Dong Yuan and Qin Yiru. Yang Whiting had no idea that Dong Yuan was now a high-ranking official in Longmen City. Otherwise, Yang Whiting would not have dared to insult Dong Yuan and Qin Yiru in front of everyone even if she wanted to. So what if my mom and Auntie Dong admitted it? I'm the one who told them not to stay too long with trash before they came. Is that wrong? Yun Jian's melodious voice rang out just as Yang Whiting was in high spirits. Chapter 746. Yun Jian listened from the side and figured out the whole story. Yang Whiting was here purely to cause trouble for Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan. As Yun Jian spoke, she was already strolling over. She had just returned from Hang City. After knowing that Qin Yiru had gone to pick out a wedding dress, she wanted to rush over to accompany Qin Yiru. She did not expect to encounter such a situation. Yun Jian knew Qin Yiru very well. One should not be too weak, or else one would be bullied. That was true, but Qin Yiru was weak. She would never brag in front of others. Even if Yun Jian was the director of new crews, Qin Yiru would not brag in front of others, because she was not that kind of person. That was why Yang Whiting came to bully her. Although Yun Jian did not like Qin Yiru's weak personality, there was nothing she could do. The only thing she could do was to protect Qin Yiru, and not let others bully her. Just as Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present twitched violently. By the time they came back to their senses, Yun Jian was already in front of them. Trash? Who are you talking about? Yang Whiting shrieked when she heard that. She was dressed fashionably, and even had bright red nail polish on her hands. However, when she heard Yun Jian's words, Yang Whiting could not hold it in anymore. You're the bastard child of Qin Yiru, and the man she dropped out of high school to marry, right? Haha. Who are you calling trash? Yang Whiting loved to curse when she was young. Now that she heard Yun Jian call them trash, she did not hold back at all. Everyone present was Qin Yiru's high school student. When Yun Jian called them trash, she included all of them. When Yang Whiting insulted Qin Yiru, everyone present looked at Qin Yiru with disdain. Yun Jian saw everything clearly. Qin Yiru had dropped out of high school to marry a man from the countryside. Everyone present thought that Qin Yiru was a poor village woman who lived in the countryside, someone who would never be able to make a name for herself. Therefore, no one bothered with her during the class reunion in the afternoon. Some of them even mocked Qin Yiru jokingly. If Dong Yuan had not replied for her, Qin Yiru would not have known how to answer. I'll talk to whoever responds to me. Yun Jian replied faintly with a cold glance at Yang Whiting. Yun Jian ignored Yang Whiting and went over to take Qin Yiru's hand, telling Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan, Mom, Auntie Dong, let's go. As she spoke, Yun Jian was about to pull Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan into the bridal gown shop. Yang Whiting was rendered speechless by Yun Jian's words. Seeing that Yun Jian was about to pull Qin Yiru and Dong Yuan away in the next second, Yang Whiting was enraged. Her eyes then landed on the signboard of the bridal gown shop. It's Jelly Bridal Gown Shop. This is the biggest bridal gown shop in Longmen City. The lowest price for a bridal gown is tens of thousands. Can you guys afford it? Yang Whiting could not help shouting when she saw that Yun Jian and her friends were about to enter the shop. As Yang Whiting spoke, she did not forget to boast. When I got married to my husband, we bought our bridal gowns here. They cost 30,000 apiece. I said it was too expensive, but he insisted on buying them for me. I really can't do anything about him. Young Whiting began to indulge in her own ego as she spoke. Mo-san, buy all the shops in United Luenmai Shopping Center. Just as Young Whiting was feeling smug, a rich and pleasant male voice rang out. Yun Jian turned around abruptly when she heard the familiar voice. Chapter 747. Everyone was stunned by Si Yi's sudden appearance. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes slightly. Qin Yiru and Dong Wan did not expect Si Yi to show up out of the blue. What surprised them the most was that Si Yi had addressed the person as mother-in-law. The term mother-in-law was undoubtedly referring to Qin Yiru. Si Yi did not mention future mother-in-law, which meant that Si Yi had set his mind on Yun Jian and would not allow Yun Jian to go back on her word. In contrast to Qin Yiru and Dong Ruan's reaction, Young Whiting and the rest had never seen Si Yi before. Especially Young Whiting. When she realized that the mother-in-law Si Yi was referring to was Qin Yiru, she laughed sarcastically. Mother-in-law? TSK. While Young Whiting was chuckling, Emo's son had already turned to leave. Young Whiting was still looking at Qin Yiru with a mocking gaze. Qin Yiru, you're a mother-in-law so early? Your daughter is only in junior high, isn't she? As she spoke, Young Whiting glanced at Yun Jian in disdain. She then turned to look at Si Yi who had just appeared, only to see Si Yi's handsome face that would infuriate both humans and gods. Even the middle-aged Young Whiting could not help gasping when she saw Si Yi, but she recovered quickly. Like mother, like daughter. You dropped out of high school, and your daughter found a man so quickly. Is she planning to climb up the social ladder and become a phoenix? Young Whiting taunted Qin Yiru again. Young Whiting thought about it carefully. Her husband was the director of Longmen City's largest plastic processing factory, and was worth millions. Young Whiting had attended many gatherings with her husband. She had attended all the gatherings in Longmen City, big and small. However, she had never seen Si Yi before. With that, Young Whiting automatically assumed that Si Yi was a conceited young man. Who was he kidding? It was like a joke. Luenmai Shopping Center was not a place where one could just buy whatever they wanted. In Longmen City in this era, anyone with a net worth of millions could be considered a millionaire. The total assets of all the stores in Luenmai Shopping Center should be at least tens of millions, if not 100 million. Even if Si Yi was a rich second-generation heir, how could he have so much money? Was this a joke? After all, money in this era was much more valuable than it was now. 1 yuan back then might be equivalent to 10 or 20 yuan now. Young Whiting could not help scolding Si Yi who was walking toward Yun Jian. She could not help scolding Si. Young Whiting could not help blowing her own trumpet. Forget it. It's useless to tell you all this. Those who aren't born into a rich family are destined to not have the dignity of a rich family. After Young Whiting said those words, many people present were unhappy. Even the group of people who were with Young Whiting just now were a little unhappy. It was because most of them were from ordinary families. While Young Whiting was speaking, Si Yi had already walked to Yun Jian. He extended his fair and slender hand to caress Yun Jian's head softly in front of everyone. Qin Yiru was quite angry with Young Whiting as well, but she was too weak and afraid of getting into trouble. When Si Yi stood up for her just now, Qin Yiru had a better impression of Si Yi. When Young Whiting saw that no one was paying attention to her, she thought that she was right and continued her tirade. When Young Whiting thought that Si Yi, Yun Jian, and the rest had all listened to her, Si Yi merely caressed Yun Jian's head without even looking at her. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.